What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 12 SC, Chapter 276, Bloated Golden Lion. Although I don't know. This tricky approach, the system will determine success. But even if it fails, it doesn't matter to him, does it? Besides, who said that expatriate members can't be sent back again? A sly look flashed in Bai Yu's eyes. Yes, expatriate members. From now on, you are our Straw Hat Regiment, an expatriate member of the Revolutionary Army. Luffy clapped his hands excitedly. Said the strange words Bai Yu heard from his mouth. Golden Lion looked at Luffy not far away and was speechless for a moment. The straw hat under the sun is particularly eye-catching and dazzling. Is it? Guys with straw hats don't listen to people. That's what Roger's guy is like, and so is this straw hat guy. That's why he's clamoring to be the Pirate King. ... Golden Lion wanted to laugh, but he still didn't laugh. After thousands of times of refusal, after 940 came to the mouth, only one word remained. Okay. Straw hat. Golden Lion looked at the straw hat on Luffy's head, and his whole person fell into deep memories. The straw hat boy is still like this. And the unfathomable Bai Yu behind him. Even Golden Lion could not help but shudder from the bottom of his heart. The sea. This time is really going to change. Is this the new era you were looking for, Roger? Mistake. Expatriate member. Expatriate member. What happened to you? Golden Lion just recovered. I saw a rubber palm dangling in front of my eyes. The figure behind the so is a naive idiot with a straw hat and a face full of naivety. Straw hat. Boy, don't see me, I'm dizzy. Golden Lion pushed Luffy's hand away. Calmly looking at the endless sea. The momentum of Quanzhong radiated from his bones, and the clouds in the sky were shattered. He, the lion ghost, is back. Boy, fight with me. Don't you want to be the Pirate King? Then let me test your temperament. The surging sword intent radiated from the famous sword in his hands. The messy blonde hair is fluffy and scattered, like a real lion king appearing in the bow. There was a dazzling fighting intent in his eyes, and the scorching heat seemed to pierce the space. Fighting. Luffy looked up. He looked at the man who had just been beaten by him. A look of lack of interest. Have this time. Might as well go get some food. Something in Sanji seems to be ready soon. Delicious barbecue. Glowing cuisine. Luffy floated towards the kitchen where Sanji was, with a wave on his face. As for the Golden Lion, of course, it was once again ignored by the gorgeous. How dare you ignore me? The Golden Lion in the corner trembled with anger. Asshole. Roger's got his hands on it. Just a little guy who inherits Roger's will. How dare you ignore him? No matter what, the humiliation of the previous big defeat must be completely regained now. He is the Golden Lion Shiki. The Lion King / wave. The famous sword in his hand swung forward vigorously. The powerful slash, turned into a lion head-shaped attack, slammed into the front. The sword chi that opened mountains and seas before. Follow the lion head that ripped apart the space to compare. It's just kids' play, not worth mentioning. The difference between the two is more than 10 times. The sudden increase of strength, and the strength to return to the peak. Let Golden Lion's shaky confidence become as stable as a mountain when it's time. Ding. Don't you want to be the Pirate King? Then let me see how talented you are. Golden Lion's eyes flashed fiercely. With the famous sword in his hand waving, several lion heads swept out. They formed a strange formation with each other, blocking the surrounding space. There is no chance to escape, and there is only one way to go head to head and fight head to head. But, the mind of a foodie seems to be immersed in food all the time. Excited as always, he walked to the kitchen, unaware of the attack behind him. Bakudo number 73 inverted mountain crystals. The ferocious lion head impact came in an instant, and Luffy was about to bleed on the spot. A set of triangular cone-shaped defensive formations appeared out of thin air in midair, blocking the lion's head's only path. Bang bang bang. A blast of air crashed. The triangular cone-shaped defensive formation is still no match for the impact. Collapsed into pure Reiatsu and disappeared into the air. But, the lion head attack didn't get there either. After the mad bombardment, he was twisted and formed by the sword energy, and his strength was also exhausted. It's kind of interesting. Bai Yu raised his eyebrows. Although the power is only 1/3. And it's not really a high-profile Kido. But it can be broken so easily. Does it really deserve to be a remnant of the old times? After all, the Golden Lion's shot was just a tentative attack. Bai Yu, boy. Golden Lion cast a solemn look. Who keeps your lion's head from turning? Bai Yu shrugged, his face full of helplessness. What? Golden Lion frowned even tighter. No delay. Golden Lion just wanted to say something. Out of the corner of his eye, he realized that, taking advantage of his astonishment, Luffy, who was thinking about food, was about to disappear around the corner. Want to make a move to consider Luffy. Incidentally, how could he still be able to sit still when he regained his face? A dazzling sword light rose in his eyes, and the dazzling blonde hair flew freely. Boom. A terrifying aura emerged from him, with an aura that made all living beings surrender. Sure enough, another conqueror's hockey holder. Thousand Slice Valley. The hands dance into afterimages, cutting off all sword intent. It turned into countless huge lion heads, covering the entire sky. As long as an order is given, everything in the front can be completely destroyed. Okay. Bai Yu's eyes flashed fiercely. Dash dash. The slender figure turned into a streamer in front of the offensive. The power of destruction entrenched in his heart was about to move, dyeing Jin Kunluo a pitch-black color. One knife flow. Profound meaning. One knife shira. The blade dances lightly, the long blade that condenses the strength of the whole body, bursting with dazzling rays of light. 0.0 terrifying aura, and soul-defying knife light. For a time, the dazzling sun in the sky was suppressed for life. Boy Bai Yu, what the hell are you trying to do? Golden Lion gave a cold face. The 3 shots were interrupted several times. Rao was facing Bai Yu, and he couldn't help but get angry. Do what? If you want to challenge the status of captain, of course you have to defeat me, the deputy captain. Bai Yu asked for a sword flower and said with a look of course. When did I say I would challenge the captain's status? Golden Lion raised his throat and said aggrievedly. Didn't you promise our captain to board the ship and become an expatriate member of our Straw Hats? Could it be that everything you said before was lying to me? Bai Yu's eyes are small. A dangerous look flashed inside. Quote. Chapter 277. This child is so terrifying. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Boom. 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 The power of destruction completely released the restrictions, rendering Jin Kunluo into the pure black of ultimate. And the bright silver on the tips of the hair, forming an extremely sharp conflict contrast. The red steam rises on the surface of the body, and the long-blooded dragon seems to pierce through the void. There is also a force that makes people tremble and cannot resist, and it seems that there is nothing in the dark. Grumpy. Golden Lion couldn't help swallowing. A few drops of cold sweat the size of beans quietly slipped from his forehead. How could I lie to you? I'm not, don't talk nonsense. Golden Lion's throat was a little itchy, and opening his mouth was a set of 3 consecutive denials. When, of course, it is not fear, nor is it conceited. He just reluctantly gave in because of Bai Yu's love for his recreation. It's fine if you don't. Bai Yu nodded and eased his face. It was only then that the various anomalies on the body surface were barely restrained. Lion King 100,000s cut the valley. The lion heads facing each other in the air quietly dispersed. Ling's sword energy changed -12 directions and rose again on the deck. I can't be provoked, can't I hide from you? What are you doing? Before the lion's head began to manifest, Bai Yu's cold face swung over first. In a flash, thousands of changes appeared on Jin Kunluo, directly blocking all the paths of coming and going. I just want to get started with the Straw Hat Boy, and have a look at what you need. Guard like an old hen. The corners of Golden Lion's mouth became bitter, and he automatically silenced the second half of the sentence. Challenge. As a companion on the ship, if you want to challenge the captain, you have to pass me no matter what. Bai Yu turned a deaf ear, and immediately stood in front of him. It's not that he took care of Luffy, Bai Yu didn't have that much spare time. Besides, with Luffy's strength, even if the Golden Lion flourished, it wouldn't necessarily undermine him. He just wanted to beat the morale of Golden Lion, so that this guy would not become overly inflated. Chess pieces or something. In addition to being sturdy and durable, it is also necessary to smooth the edges and corners. He didn't want to use it and put his hand away, and if he wasn't careful, he would devour himself. You. Golden Lion glared angrily. How? Bai Yu greeted him directly without giving in. The stalemate aura pierced a hole in the sky. The weather is sunny and windy, and the dark clouds are rendered, as if the sky is afraid of discoloration. Boom. The war was about to break out, and Jinbei and Nami couldn't help but pound their hearts. But the battle still didn't start. With Luffy, disappear at the end of the aisle. The Golden Lion's original strong fighting intent collapsed. Do it all at once, second time tired, third time exhausted. The morale was blocked again and again, and now even if Golden Lion wanted to do it, he couldn't raise his previous fighting spirit. The smoke of the war began to gradually subside. Golden Lion forced a smile. Just as he was about to say something, Usopp stumbled over. Deputy Captain. White Mask, a group of guys with white masks are here, followed by a lot of people from the world government, and the bald old man who fought with you last time is also. Usopp, out of breath, had a mix of panic and fear. If it wasn't for someone, I'm afraid I would have been crying with snot and tears as usual. Bald head. 5 elders. They dare to come. There was some surprise in Bai Yu's eyes. He was beaten so badly a few days ago that the sword was broken in 2, how dare you come? But there was no fear on his face. Not at all worried, the other party came to trouble him. If the purpose is really impure, it is impossible to make a big splash, and it is really just a decoration. Are they here to deliver the fruit? In Bai Yu's questioning words, the tone was unquestionably certain. That's right. The vice captain is really amazing, you actually guessed it. Usopp looked astonished and gave him a thumbs up in admiration. By the way, who is this guy? Usopp, gasping for breath, finally dared to ask questions. Oh, he is the captain's new partner, Shiki, the Golden Lion, but there shouldn't be many opportunities to meet each other. He should often stay with the dragon and run another front. Bai Yu replied casually. He would never hide this kind of thing from his partners. That's it. Hello, my name is Usopp. I'm super strong. You can come to me if you have a hand. Usopp stuck his slingshot and greeted the newcomer enthusiastically. Okay, Golden Lion, hello. Under Bai Yu's cool eyes. After all, the Golden Lion did not maintain detachment. Forcibly squeezed out a smile, laughing more ugly than crying. Hey, so it's you. All the hands and feet have recovered, and I didn't recognize it for a while. It must have been the help of the deputy captain. Let me tell you, our deputy captain is super strong, not only has a high force value, but also even. Usopp took Shiki's indifference as a newcomer's shyness. Zilai Shu pulled him, hooked his shoulders and started chatting with Bai Yu as the center. While in full swing, while smiling stiffly. It was a pleasure to chat. Bai Yu gave a wicked laugh, without disturbing their pleasure. Pulling Jinbei and Robin directly, they walked in the direction they perceived in the sight. A terrifying cold air spewed out of him. Even water molecules in the air. They were all frozen out, hexagonal ice flowers that were hard to see with the naked eye. What a horrible cold. The Golden Lion in the embarrassed laugh has passive goosebumps. If he needed time, he thought it was Yoshio, and he rushed over to 940 regardless of naval headquarters. With a wary look on his face, he looked towards the source of the cold snap. The sight in front of you. He couldn't help but shrink his eyes to the size of pinpoints. Ice. Endless ice. The entire Wangyang Sea has turned into snow-white ice crystals. Everything is exactly the same as Qingshang's ultimate move, Frozen World. 16. The culprit of all this, far beyond his expectations, is actually Bai Yu. Replicant Bai Yu. A flash of light flashed in his heart. Golden Lion Fuji thought of something. Aokiji's unique trick actually appeared in Bai Yu's hands. Is it? Aokiji also has a close relationship with him. Like myself, got on his pirate ship, and belonged to the same class as him. Then think of the rumors on the black market. Kizaru suspected undercover. Sengoku shot to the sea. Garp in disguise to save people. Golden Lion couldn't help but gasped. It was originally thought that Straw Hat Crew was only slightly colluding with Marine executives. Unexpectedly, even Marshal Marine was caught by him. Isn't that Marine headquarters going to take on his shape? Looking at Bai Yu's drifting back, Golden Lion's heart swayed, unable to extricate himself for a long time. After a long time. Then he let out a sigh of relief. This child is so terrifying. Chapter 278. Charge interest. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. This child is so scary. I never imagined that I would also enjoy the treatment of the protagonist one day. The corner of Bai Yu's mouth curved, and he chuckled lightly. Of course Aokiji has nothing to do with him, or has not had time to get involved. The move he used just now is called Frozen 1000 Miles, from the famous online game in the previous life, Poisonous Milk Powder. It was Jinbei who awakened the power of the Ice Master after he had fully practiced the water style. As a spellcaster who was born in an extremely cold place and controls the power of frost, he is known as a momentary eternal spellcaster. Hey, Bai Yu, what are you thinking? Seeing the smile on Bai Yu's face, Robin couldn't help but become curious. Didn't Usopp say that the world government has sent devil fruit? The deputy captain must be happy for that thing. That's 5 fruits. Fatty Land's vicious face could not help but envy and hate. World government is really rich and powerful. The fruit known as the secret treasure of the sea is given as you say it, and its movements are so neat. Bitterness in Shichibukai, Jinbei said that poverty limits imagination. Devil fruit. It's brought over so quickly, there shouldn't be any fraud in it, right? Robin couldn't help but be suspicious. She is not a simple vase. She has been wandering with bounties since she was a child, and knows the value of devil fruit. No. The boss's strength is so strong, what would they dare to do? The blue fat man was surprised. An uncontrollable look of unease appeared on his face. Maybe it's shoddy or something. Just last time, the guy named Guy can make devil fruit. Although, the price is too heavy, but the world government has a great career, who knows if they will. Robin still couldn't let his guard down. She knows well that the world government's behavior is despicable and dirty. To their positive actions to fulfill their promises. Always holding a skeptical look, he couldn't help worrying that Bai Yu would suffer. Do not worry. Bai Yu took the top of the girl's head. The soft touch made him half squinted his eyes very much. I am here. Bai Yu spoke calmly. The short 3 words are full of endless confidence. Under absolute strength, all sugar charms are not worth mentioning. If the world government really wants to get the artificial devil fruit. As if thinking of something interesting. A strange smile appeared on his indifferent face. Just being overshadowed by Bai Yu's self-confidence, he completely put down his dangling heart. Robin just saw the smile on the corner of his mouth. On a sunny day, the whole person couldn't help shivering. Every time he smiles like this, it means that someone must be unlucky. Wano Kuni off the coast, on the moat formed by a huge waterfall. The lower part was occupied by a group of capable men in white masks and suits. Above the waterfall, stood a bunch of swordsmen dressed as samurai, and heavily armed defenders. Obviously a large number of people occupy the home court, and they are also condescending. However, the swordsmen on the waterfall were stunned by the men in suits below, and they were a little breathless. It has nothing to do with the number of people, and it has nothing to do with the position. The people below represent the controllers of the world government. The bald head of the leader, the meaning is more terrifying, that is the highest power, 5 elders. Even if they are in opposition, even if they have repulsed their attack. Wano Kuni's side still showed no arrogance, and his face was full of sincerity and fear. Straw Hat Crew. Aren't they coming out yet? Do you want anything? A faint voice sounded under the waterfall. The one who spoke was an old acquaintance in 5 elders, the bald brother. Usopp of the Straw Hats has already received the news and sent a message. Mr. Bai Yu is not used to using phone bugs. We can only use this method to notify. It should not take long. Kinemon opened the mouth and said in a submissive manner. The guy who is usually a monkey, is now the same as a duck and a goose. What kind of thing are you? You are also worthy of talking to the old man. The bald-headed 5 elders gave a low drink, and a strong light reflected from the glasses. The blood-colored brilliance emerged from the first-generation Onito, and the person with the real murderous force could not breathe. Gollum. I am the general of Wano Kuni. Since your excellency came to my country, then. Kazuki Yamato forced his mouth open. Absolutely strong will, and the will of being a general, drove him to resist the coercion forcefully. But, although spirit is admirable, strength is never a vain thing. If you are determined. Before he could speak, he was interrupted on the spot. Your country. Humph. The bald 5 elders snorted coldly. The killing intent on his body was even stronger, and it was about to thicken and fall into drops of water. The warriors of Wano Kuni are shaky. The veins on his face were exposed, his eyes were red, and they were all on the verge of collapse. Laugh. The sneer sounded on the field. The bald head in the abuse of vegetables, the mood is significantly improved. It's not good for you to do anything to Bai Yu for the time being, I can't vent my anger against your subordinates. Die. Killing intent rolled out, turned into a real blood-colored sword intent. If you don't give it a bit of power, I really think that their world government is a good soft persimmon. On the calm sea, the blood-colored sword chi flew out on the level of consciousness. As long as the attack is successful, the light will turn into a mentally retarded, and the heavy will turn into a mentally disabled. Seeing that everyone was unaware, the dead crow had sounded the horn. Boom. A huge portal appeared in the air. 3 figures of different heights came out through the white light behind the door. Quote. Bai Yu. The bald-headed 5 elders' pupils shrank, and his face froze for a moment. The attack that was about to succeed, was frightened and did not dare to move rashly, stagnating in the air. The means that had been concealed in the first place, now there is no trace at all. But, in the face of the power of Shinigami, play with the means of the spiritual level. Innocent. Bai Yu smiled coldly and threw out 2 words as a comment. The 93 mirror gate of Hado. The invisible mirror that Reiatsu turned into traverses the entire sky. All the blood-colored sword chi that Wu Nuomo's people could see was blocked from the outside. Stop, stop, shaved 5 elders with shrunken pupils. There was a sudden unease in my heart. Although I didn't expect this kind of tricks to pass in front of Bai Yu's eyes. However, unexpectedly so quickly, he discovered the moves he had carefully planned, and it was so easy to crack. This is too. He began to regret his hasty action just now. It's not over yet. The corners of Bai Yu's mouth curved, and a stern look flashed in his eyes. He's not someone who only takes hits and doesn't fight back. Rolling Reiatsu swept out nephew. On the invisible mirror, a dazzling light flashed. The originally stagnant blood-colored long sword seemed to have received some powerful propulsive force. Bloody sword. In an instant, they turned their guns around. He pierced through the void at a speed that even Reiatsu could hardly notice, and threw back all the incoming attacks. With his way, he also gave his body. Mirror. Chapter 279. Martial Marine is also against it. The bald-headed 5 elders turned pale. Thousands of long swords are added to the body, if not all of them are illusory. It was purely a mental attack, the old man had long been riddled with holes and was blown into a leaking ball. Rao is like this, but he was also caught off guard by the reflex, giving him a splitting headache. Hey, stay safe. Bai Yu floated down, gave a cold look and said. To each other. The bald-headed 5 elders held their breath and refused to show their cowardice. I brought what you asked for before. After a hard mouth. The bald-headed 5 elders took the initiative to end the scene and quickly entered the topic. No matter how polite it is, the ghost knows what will happen. For Bai Yu, he is about to have a psychological shadow. What? Bai Yu snorted coldly. The playful eyes are full of irony. If he was willing to expose it so easily, he would be a ghost. Bakudo's 93-96 Beijing fire frames are extinguished. Kido started silently. The terrifying power of Kido gathers into darkness. It turned into a streamer within. Hey, and charged towards the bald 5 elders. The speed is so fast that it directly crosses the void. People don't even have time to react. Yan. The crisp sword chant sounded automatically without wind. First generation Onitoru's slender 940 blade flashed a coquettish bloody light. This supremely fast knife, commonly known as the demon knife, actually took the initiative to protect the master and meet the Kido impact. It's kind of vengeful. Bai Yu could feel the strong hostility on the demon sword from a distance. With the reminder of the demon knife, the bald-headed five elders certainly wouldn't sit still, and hurriedly gritted their teeth. Under the unity of man and knife and sincere cooperation, the seal was finally resisted. After all, it is not the sealing technique of the Hokage world. Humph. The bald five elders grunted. Dark red blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Lord Five Elders, what's the matter with you? Are you all right? The members of the CP who were not open to the eyes quickly leaned over to show their concern. Damn. An angry look flashed across the faces of the bald five elders. Fine. Squeezing down the injury, his face is as usual. Although it looks like nothing is wrong, it is definitely not a minor internal injury. This is still under the premise that there is a first-generation ghost, to suppress the blood. Otherwise, it's not just that, the current mediocre injury will at least have to vomit 3 liters of blood. Fine. Bai Yu chuckled lightly, his face noncommittal. Anyway, the gas has already been released, so there is no need to be quick with words. After all, it's not the time to tear your face completely. The two looked at each other. They both saw the deep fear in each other's eyes. The hemp stick is afraid of hitting the wolf at both ends, and this is what I said. My things, take them out. The trouble has been made, the place has been recovered, and it is time to get to the point. 5 devil fruits, all here. Bald-headed 5 elders, spread out the lockbox in his hand. 5 fruits of different shapes were carefully placed on the wire cloth. The strange pattern of the capital is drawn on it, and it is the devil fruit, which is called the secret treasure of the sea. Promise. The bald-headed 5 elders dare not touch Bai Yu's face. After a long distance, I threw the box in my hand. His face was still full of vigilance. The blood-colored radiance on the demon sword was ready to go. For fear that Bai Yu would give him a sneak attack and let him play GG when he was caught off guard. Cow rub. The endless cold current spreads out. In an instant, hexagonal ice flowers formed in the air. Frozen profound truth. Copy Jinbei's icy power. The box that was thrown in the air was directly frozen into a lump of ice. Suck. Bai Yu didn't let go of the newly arrived ripe fruit. An inexplicable force emerged out of thin air and pulled the Bingtuo password box over. Every move, but also unprecedented care. The ghost knows how much the world government has been in charge of the world for more than 800 years, and how many things have been hidden in secret. Frozen. The bald 5 elders' pupils shrivel. The last suction is too hidden, and he may not be able to see the clue. But the bright ice ballast in the sky, he is not old enough to see clearly. BCAA. Copy frozen fruit. Could it be that Marshal Marine Aokiji was also the other way around? No, he blatantly used it to frame him. No, maybe it was him who made the suspicion. Asshole. Thousands of thoughts come to mind. But still can't figure out what's true and false. True and false and true, he was completely spared into the pit. However, in any case, the seeds of doubt have been planted. Marine. The eyes under the glasses were full of obscure expressions. With a gloomy face, he seemed to be thinking, considering a decision. Deliver. You don't seem right. Before the bald-headed 5 elders made a thorough decision, Bai Yu's displeased voice rang in his ears. What could be wrong? The ghostly bald 5 elders, his heart jumped to his throat. Other than this devil fruit, what else could be wrong? Bai Yu looked over with a half smile. It's true that Robin was right. World government really is, if you don't use tricks, you will die. The password box is opened, and the fruit starts. Exclusive skill, Asura. The feedback he gave him made him realize something was wrong. This fruit is not natural, but man-made. 9 times out of 10, it was an artificial devil fruit created by Baker Panga. After all, that guy can be researched with the support of Ming Jie, and it is strange that Baker Panga, who has been leading the world for hundreds of years, has the blessing of the world government. Evil, devil fruit. The bald-headed 5 elders, who did not shed tears without seeing the coffin, still refused to let go. It should be man-made, right? The doubtful question was said decisively by Bai Yu. The words were mixed with unquestionable confidence, and the plain eyes had already seen through everything. Yes, so what? Dang, the promise at that time was devil fruit. I didn't promise that it must be nurtured by nature and produced naturally. The bald tense throat was a little itchy. The dead ducks on their mouths have hard mouths, but they have long been panicked in their hearts. The dry palm has long been tightly gripped on the hilt of the first-generation goosh. The flirtatious blood light roamed quietly on the blade, always on alert for Bai Yu's possible surprise attack. How about you find bugs for me and play word games? Bai Yu's eyes are slightly cold. Ling Lai's killing intent swept through the bone-piercing cold to the bone marrow. What's wrong with man-made? Isn't the man-made devil fruit too? When you made your request, you didn't make it clear. How can you blame our world government? The bald 5 elders grumbled. Everyone is apprehensive. The fight is who has the guts. Anyway, until the last moment, he will never let go easily. Of course, the nuclear bomb Inoue's nuclear bomb cannot be put down. Without Uranus ready to go, he would only stand in front of this monster when his brain was pumping. Chapter 280. You made a profit, and I lost money and went bankrupt. Artificial. Bai Yu was angry, fearful, struggling, and most regretful. In the blink of an eye, several complex expressions flashed across his face. Rich in emotion, he can be an actor and win the Oscar. Man-made. But the number must be changed, at least doubled. Bai Yu gritted his teeth and said viciously. In the icy eyes, there is a murderous intent, a look of extreme anger. 20. Too many. Before. Isn't there only 10 before? How come? The bald-headed five elders was overjoyed, but his face was still embarrassed. It's the first time that I've been against Bai Yu for so long. If it hadn't been for so many years, the bald-headed five elders would have laughed out loud long ago. But, since it is a business negotiation, of course, it will be as cheap as possible. Try to lower the price as much as possible, this is in line with the rules. 10 are the price of natural generation, man-made ones are at least double, 20 man-made devil fruits, half of them can't be missing. Bai Yu's face was cold, and his voice was like ice ballast. Killing intent swept the cold. The long-blooded dragon and the dark luster complement each other. It is like the Asura demon god who walked out of a sea of blood. It looks like it is extremely patient, and if there is a disagreement, he will draw a knife and shoot. Okay, I promise. When the bald five elders saw this, they dared not speak again. For fear that his tendons were not aligned, he directly stabbed himself. No way. Whoever asks the opponent to play cards not according to the routine will start with a big hand. The enemy is strong and I am weak, and the diplomatic tactics are not strong. Now, delivery, goods. The sound of every word, biting cold to the bone, froze the sound of running water from the waterfall. Yes, but, this time there are only 10, and the rest will arrive in a few days, how? The bald five elders hurriedly handed over the cards. It was too tiring to have a psychological game with the great demon king, so he decided to give up. Bai Yu's face changed several times, watching the bald-headed five elders frightened. Just when his tense heartstrings were about to collapse. Finally, I heard a heavy, good, in my ear. The heart that has been raised in the throat can finally be put down and take a good breath. Call. Finally got it. The bald-headed five elders let out a long breath and could finally relax a little. Plus. Think of the new conditions you have won. Bald-headed five elders, heart Shunin couldn't stop rising with a touch of joy. Hey, 2 artificial fruits can replace a naturally generated devil fruit. Absolute blood. Not to mention, it is absolutely impossible to copy the artificial fruit's ability to copy the fruit, otherwise, wouldn't this devil fruit be heaven-defying? That has such a bug ability. He couldn't believe it. As far as their value and cost are concerned, they are absolutely worlds apart. One is the secret treasure of the sea that is naturally generated, and the other is the artificially created ability fruit. Not to mention, the artificial devil fruit has all kinds of side effects after taking it. The impact on the personality is mild, and even if it is serious, it is not impossible to distort the personality and lose one's sense. This transaction, absolute blood, make a lot of money. Yeah, you make a profit, make a lot of money. I lost to bankruptcy, lost my ass. Bai Yu lowered his head to cover his face, which everyone thought was extremely angry. His expression was unexpectedly happy. His eyes narrowed slightly, unable to hide the joy inside. If it weren't for the wrong timing, he really wanted to laugh up to the sky. It was already possible that he could only harvest 10, but he didn't expect God to use 20 more for him. Artificial fruit, and natural fruit, to him, the effect is exactly the same. Drawbacks. Of course there is. Of course, the side effects of the fruit that affect the mind are still there. 18. Has an exclusive skill. Asura is here, Bai Yu is afraid of a hammer. The power of destruction that shatters the world can be swallowed correctly, and the side effects are nothing. When the fruit is swallowed, it can all be consumed. He was able to digest the artificial fruit that Guy had made before, let alone Baker Panga's. Bai Yu's current feeling is that in the big summer, he drank a bottle of iced Fat House happy water. Every pore of the body is moaning with the same word, cool. I've left everything to you, farewell. Hollow out the last stock and hand it out. The bald-headed five elders looked at Bai Yu with a wary expression. In the hands of the first-generation ghosts, the blood lingers, and Uranus is ready to go. For flowers for fear that he would make a bold move, or make another noise. She looked terrified, like a little girl who was cheated by a scumbag. Go slow. Bai Yu restrained his smile and slowly raised his head, feigning a cold expression on his face. Slow down. The bald five elders sneered. Being stared at by the big devil, how dare he walk slowly? The whole person was directly wrapped in a mass of blood, and rushed to the sky on the moonwalk. It turned into a bloody shadow and swiftly shuttled, blazing fast, like a tiger chasing and biting its buttocks. Not to mention the CP members on standby, even the moored ships ignored them, turned into black spots and disappeared at the end of the sky. Point 0. Running dozens of miles away, the corresponding ship left. Abandoned CP members, face to face with the country. You can see through the mask, the despair on the face inside. After pulling out a smile that was uglier than crying. Only then did he dare to tiptoe into the boat softly, accompany him to laugh and get up and leave. For fear of making a noise and angering someone in anger, he was completely frozen into a lump of ice. Come fast, go fast. No one dared to touch the bad head, and they all scattered. In the blink of an eye, there were only 3 Bai Yu left in the vast ocean. The huge waterfall drop, blasting in and out of countless brilliant white water. Bai Yu was in front of Splash, quietly fiddling with 10 pieces of artificial devil fruit he just got. Fatty Lan followed behind, cautiously. The vicious fish's head is full of sincerity and anxiety. He didn't dare to say a word, for fear of angering the boss and wearing small shoes. In the quiet environment, there was only the rushing sound of the water, making a sound that carried through the sky, which suppressed the atmosphere and made people breathless. These devil fruits have mysteries in them, right? There was a sly look in Robin's eyes. Don't you all know that these are man-made? What's the mystery? Fatty Lan couldn't help but wink at her. Ant, what's the matter with you? Which pot can't be opened and lifted? Jinbei was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. For fear of being angry with Bai Yu, after being stabbed in the sore spot, the volcano erupted and became furious. It's a little bit, how did you guess it? The corner of Bai Yu's mouth smirked, and his eyes were full of smiles. 0. Chapter 281. Blue Fatty Delusional Song. Light. Prison cells worldwide. In the face of the world government, I have to worry that the final payment has not yet been received. So you have to control your expression a little bit. But in front of his companions, Bai Yu didn't need it. If he wanted to laugh, he laughed outright. If he was suffocated, he would have to suffocate him to death. But, Bai Yu's true feelings revealed. In a fish's eyes, it seems to have changed a bit. It's over. It's over. It's all full of anger and laughter. It's cold. It's cold. I'm looking for Chopper now. Can I prepare a bed for me? The blue fat man panicked instantly. Doe's big eyes were filled with horror. The nervous little appearance is about to overflow from his face. If the phone bug is in hand now, I have to give Chopper a deadly serial call. Hee, of course it's your expression. Robin's dark eyes, dripping, and ghostly. Bai Yu's character, he is still, 940, can he not know? He's not anything, someone who can swallow his voice. Besides, it's just the relationship between them. How could this little expression be able to hide from her, the slightly shrugged shoulders, she could see it all. Not to hold back laughter, but also to cry and cry. Robin couldn't help rolling his eyes. It seems, Robin doesn't realize the seriousness of the matter. The blue fat man, who was panicking, had a mournful look on his face. The soft atmosphere in front of him is not easy for him to be calm before the storm. It always feels like a volcano is about to erupt at any time. Totally panicked, the corners of Bai Yu's mouth curved slightly, and he snorted coldly. Come, the boss snorted, the boss is going to be completely angry. A look of despair filled the fish face. Fatty Lan was completely powerless, like a salted fish who had lost his dreams. That's right, it's a bit of a mystery. The world government should have never dreamed of it, whether it is man-made or natural, the effect is harmless to me. Cloudy turned sunny on Bai Yu's face. He didn't hold back Robin's curiosity any longer, and explained it directly. No, angry. The blue fat man quietly opened his fingers. 2 tiny gaps appeared on the palm of the hand that encloses his eyes. Carefully observe through the light. Bai Yu's explanation sounded leisurely with the accompaniment of the waterfall. I don't take them to eat, but to absorb the power inside. Anyway, Bai Yu didn't expect that the world government would send him devil fruit with powerful abilities and peculiar effects, all of which were eaten as resources, and he was not picky about food. I see. Robin looked suddenly enlightened. Send. In this case. 20 artificial devil fruits, wouldn't you be able to get double power? As if thinking of something, Robin suddenly exclaimed in surprise. That's right. Bai Yu smiled and nodded. To the companions on the ship, except for the auxiliary system, in his eyes, there is nothing to hide from Ben. Not to mention, Robin is also his companion who often cooks a small stove. Marvelous. Robin looked excited. Bai Yu's strength, for her, is more worthy of happiness than her own strength. So, boss, are you really not angry? You just pretended it. Jinbei seems to have thought about it too. However, there was still a hint of hesitation and anxiety on his face. If you guess wrong, then you have to sing cool. Of course. Bai Yu's voice was decisive. However, Jinbei's actions made his eyes suspicious. What is the blue fat man doing? Send, why does the temperature feel lowered again? Before Bai Yu had time to wonder, he saw the source of the mutation. The cold current spreads from under the feet of a certain fish, forming a path of frost, and you can run away with a bucket at any time. At this moment, Fatty Lan's anxious eyes met Bai Yu's. Looking at each other, the two were speechless. It was as if there was a row of crows flying overhead. If you think about it in the future, be careful that I will hammer you to death. Understood. The eyeballs are bright, don't just scare yourself, do you hear me? I heard. Quote. A large, well-built ship is moored at sea. On the deck stood a tall, hideous-looking man with dark blue skin. It doesn't look like some kind of murloc. And now this vicious murloc. He was being trained to be a head bug by a seemingly thin human being. Compared to the tall and mighty Jinbei, Bai Yu, as a human being, is indeed not that big. But his tidal aura is definitely capable of crushing more than 10 Jinbei. Especially when he was angry, Fatty Land's liver was almost frightened. It's not over yet. I'm afraid it won't be delivered so quickly. No way. Didn't they say it's been a while? It's been a long time to say, but looking at the posture, it seems that it wasn't resolved so quickly. Nami came out of the deck with Zeus in his arms. Looking at the funny scene in front of him, he couldn't help but leaned his head. With Robin, who was watching the play, the two of them whispered together. Jinbei is so pitiful. Nami shook her head. I couldn't help but shed tears of sympathy to Fatty Lan. Shoo shoo, shoo shoo. Zeus in his arms also quickly agreed. Humph, I think he deserves it. Robin hummed and didn't take it seriously. It was too much to think about by you like that. You have awakened 2 skills, and you are also the first echelon on the ship. Do you need to read it like this? Bai Yu looked at Jinbei in front of him. His eyesight is getting worse and worse. Damn, he always felt that this guy became more and more conscientious after getting on the boat. In the past when he was in Shichibukai, he was very brave, and he was a fisherman in karate. Now, almost in tune with Usopp. Let you learn waterways, learn ice and clean, is to let you transfer from warrior to mage. It's not that you are transferred from a warrior to an old coin. Bai Yu's face was mourning for his misfortune, but his anger was indisputable, and he looked like an old father with tears in his eyes. Yes, yes, yes. The blue fat man nodded pitifully. 0.0. Jinbei said, I was terrified when I faced the boss. It's dinner. Sanji shouted at his throat, breaking the silence on the boat. Woohoo. Barbecue, steak, drinks. Hearing Luffy who was putting out the meal, he shouted excitedly and ran out. When he wanted it, it stirred the solemn atmosphere in the air and made him a little fresh. Cook, why are you eating these things today? Zoro, who came out with the second-generation ghost, deliberately targeted it. The world's #1 swordsman in our family is also a vengeful person. Inventory was consumed by yesterday's banquet, that's all that's left on board. If you don't eat it, I don't want to give it to you. Green algae head. Sanji didn't give a good face at all, and retorted. His face was full of helplessness, and the ingredients he finally bought were all finished in 3 or 2 meals. No way, who makes a boat full of rice buckets? Chapter 282, Treasure Delivery. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Jinbei, why don't you come to eat? Luffy, who is immersed in food, rarely cares about things other than eating. He raised his head and looked at Jinbei with concern, like a competent captain. If you can ignore the food coming out of your mouth, and his muffled voice. Hold head high. Jinbei did not dare to speak. Instead, he cast a watery look at Bai Yu. Go, 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 go. He couldn't stand this kind of hot-eyed scene. The pitiful gaze of the fish-head version of the blue fat man is a bit beyond his tolerance. Remember what I told you, and if you dare to do it again, be careful I'll beat you up. Bai Yu pretended to be angry and clenched his fists. Follow your orders, boss. Jinbei, as if receiving amnesty, rushed towards the light of liberation. Like Luffy, he plunged into the food pile. The captain really is a gold medal for avoiding death. Really impressed the fish. Neighing, Bai Yu, why don't you eat it 12? Just whimpered down a big chicken leg. With a contented face, Luffy looked at Bai Yu curiously. Here it is, hey. Bai Yu, who was about to speak, suddenly stopped in his mouth. The expression on his face changed, and a suspicious look flashed in his eyes. Bai Yu, what's wrong? Is there an enemy? Luffy's eyes flashed fiercely. The action of swallowing food in the mouth, although not stopped. But the transpiring blood energy has already risen from the body. The lack of root tendons is the lack of root tendons, but at a critical moment. Captain Luffy, still dependable. Deputy Captain, other crew members enjoying the meal. They also shifted their attention from the luminous cooking. Usopp took out the elixir Mars. Nami picks up a few seastone coins. Zoro wipes the second-generation Onito in his arms. Even a certain salted fish had clear ice crystals running in the palm of his hand. A frowning move, it directly triggered the vigilance of the audience, as if they were ready for battle. Bai Yu helped his forehead helplessly. Everyone misunderstood. It's okay, so don't be nervous. This time it's all old friends. Bai Yu spoke quickly, disarming them. Otherwise, when Chopper also begins to transform, this meal will be really uneatable. Old friend. Wrapped in red steam, Luffy is not too late to take 2 sips of carbonated drinks. Bai Yu, sir, everyone from the Straw Hats, long time no see. Kinemon groped up from the bow. He bowed respectfully towards Bai Yu. All kinds of breaths are intertwined, such as the feeling of awning on the back, people can't help but shed a cold sweat. If it weren't for the wrong place, reason would still exist. The samurai's intuition had long ago prompted him to pick up the long sword around his waist and use a set of Firefox-style swordsmanship to protect his body. With a lollipop in his mouth, Robin has something to say. It took less than 2 or 3 hours to separate from the entrance of the waterfall, and it's been a long time since then. It's you, it doesn't seem to be the enemy. Everyone pouted, and put away the small movements in their hands, continuing to focus on the glowing dishes in front of him. It has to be said that with the blessing of Germa's battle suit, Sanji's cooking skills have improved significantly. As we all know, the prisoner of food is really a battle. Don't want to be a soldier's crew, not a good cook. It seems that I have disturbed everyone's meal, I'm really sorry, and please forgive me. Kinemon looked at Bai Yu eagerly, apologizing and bowing again. After seeing his strength thoroughly, his posture is very correct. No need, if you have something to say, just say it directly, don't come to this arrogance. Bai Yu pouted, somewhat uncomfortable, a huge transformation for this old fox. Hey, at the entrance of the waterfall, didn't the world government send devil fruit? The compensation you've been waiting for has already arrived, and I'm sure you'll be leaving soon. Master General was afraid that you would not be able to catch up without saying goodbye, so he deliberately sent some supplies here, but it was not respectful, and I hope you will not dislike it. Afraid of self-defeating, Jinweiman did not dare to be more polite, and quickly smiled, explaining the purpose of his visit. It turned out that the ship was filled with supplies. Bai Yu lowered his eyes and solved a puzzled question in his mind. He was stunned just now and was misunderstood by the companions on the boat because he noticed this thing. So, you're here to deliver something. Jinbei touched his chin and said. Understanding Wang Lan is on the line. Yes, I have already escorted all the supplies, and they are all on a boat not far away. I am afraid of causing misunderstandings, so I parked aside. Kinemon nodded and explained. Or should I let them come over now? Kinemon looked at Bai Yu cautiously, with hope and forgetfulness in his eyes. I really hope he can take things neatly. Before in the flower capital, he almost regretted his questioning about Bai Yu and making the boy. Who would have known that this harmless young man could actually be terrifying to such an extent? It's really a fluke that I can live now, and I haven't been hacked to death. Come on. Bai Yu shook his head and laughed dumbly, he wasn't so small. Dell. Kinemon's dog gave a full response, and took out a signal flare from his arms. Put it in the sky and explode a dazzling firework, even in the daytime, it is still bright and clear. Hey hey hey. With the sound of Lifu's horn, it sounded on the field. The piled-up materials also began to be transported to the Sunshine Wan 940 mile. These are all delicious specialties of Wanokuni, as well as various meat dishes. Kinemon pointed to 3 large cargo ships. Wow, so much food. Foodie Luffy jumped up with joy and was instantly captured by the food. Damn it, so much food. A certain country is full of tears, when will he go after so many ingredients? These are the ancient texts collected by Wanokuni, as well as some historical texts printed from Zuowu, I hope they will shine new light in your hands. Kinemon pulled a large box of manuscripts and said politely to Robin. Ancient script. Historical text. Robin's eyes lit up and rushed over excitedly. Regardless of the content, for historians, they themselves are an irresistible treasure. These are the secret books of swordsmanship collected by famous names, I hope they can be helpful to you. Thank you. Zoro raised his head from the ghost of second generation, and there were a few fluctuations in Furui Wubo's eyes. Is there a collection of swordsmanship from all over the country of samurai? I don't know what is the difference between the 8,000 swordsmanship that the deputy captain taught him before. These are the knives of Wanokuni's collection of famous chefs, I hope you like it. Kinemon let people carry a set of kitchen utensils, and the clear blade shines in the sun. At first glance, it is not ordinary, and everyone is afraid that it can surpass a good and fast knife. Chapter 283. Watching the Shura field. Hey hey hey, why do you give Chlorified Head a swordsmanship manual, and give me the chef's tableware? Sanji put down the glowing dishes in his hands heavily, his face full of resentment. Ha ha ha, of course it's because, you slutty cook is a cook. Seeing the enemy's bite marks, Zoro burst out and couldn't help laughing. The 3 earrings beside the ears all jingled because the owner was happy. Bastard green algae head. Sanji was furious, if it wasn't for Bai Yu pressing his shoulder. The hand on the kitchen utensils was afraid to pick up this treasure and smashed it towards Zoro. Cough cough. Seeing that the dispute subsided, Jinamon only dared to cough twice. Continue to start his menu name. No, it is the work of the ceremony list. These seastone coins, totaling 50 million pieces, are all for your use as weapons, I hope you like them. Kinemon's aching face was beyond words. Pointing to the freighter not far away, the corners of his face kept twitching. Freighters are not only among the best in size, but also have a particularly deep waterline, surpassing those transporting meat. It's full of loads, and it's full of seastones, so it's no wonder Kinemon has that expression. After one set, the inventory of Wanokuni was directly emptied, and nothing was left. Seastone coins. Nami's eyes lit up with excitement, and his pupils became the shape of Bailey. The little thief cat turned into a greedy cat in seconds, and the whole person jumped up with excitement. Shoo shoo, shoo shoo. If it weren't for the Zeus in his arms, he was a cloud and had no entity. This time, she had to be beaten by her with excitement. Call. The work of the ceremony list is finally finished. The dry-mouthed Kinemon, before he could take a sip of water, leaned in front of Bai Yu. What's up? Bai Yu raised his eyebrows and looked suspiciously at the past. Does he have a present too? But never heard of it. There is a devil fruit reserve in Wano Kuni. If there is such a thing, Kaido will not need to develop artificial fruit with Ming brother. Cough cough. Bai Yu, sir, you have misunderstood. Perhaps it was Bai Yu's eyes that were too dazzling. Kinemon's impoverished face could not help but cough in embarrassment. I actually came here to pass the general's order. She wants to see you. Pan Pan in the east, Look in the west, and after a while. Seeing that no one was paying attention, Kinemon only dared to lean over his ear and speak quietly. The behavior of this guy hiding his head and showing his tail always feels like a pimp. Okay, I see. Just knowing is useless, you. Kinemon looked at him nervously, his eyes full of earnestness. Okay. Bai Yu nodded, walked towards the friends. You guys fix it here first, I have something to do, I'll go back when I go. After explaining it, the power of the door fruit works. A portal appeared out of nowhere. Bai Yu pushed open the door and walked into the world behind the white light. The little friends who were immersed in the treasures in their hands did not lift their heads. No one found out that one of the people on the boat had quietly left. Sanji may know. The weight on his shoulders disappeared, and he could still feel it. But in the blink of an eye, I put my energy into the fight with Zoro. On the Sunshine Mile, members of the Straw Hats. They happily guarded what they were given. Sanji and Zoro, who had been tossing for a long time, finally calmed down with satisfaction. Kinemon couldn't help wiping the sweat from his forehead. These little ancestors are really hard to serve, and giving gifts is really hard work. On the surface, everything seemed so peaceful and peaceful. Apart from, on the deck, quietly looking at the sea, three women with different expressions. Gnashing of teeth, glaring rage, weeping. She looks like a wife whose husband can't go home at night and can only wait at the door. The invisible vibration sounded out of thin air, setting off waves in the air. A huge portal appeared in midair. In the white light from behind the door, Bai Yu's slender figure returned to the ship again. Boss, are you back? As expected of a loyal blue fat man. As soon as Bai Yu appeared, Jinbei rushed over. Taking the opportunity to say hello, he hurriedly winked at him and gestured to the bow. Back. Where have you been, so long? There was an electromagnetic surge in the air, and Nami turned his head first. He looked at Bai Yu with burning eyes, and opened his mouth with a proposition. Hey, the boss Vice Captain Bai Yu is going to be out of luck. The little friends who peeked quietly. They looked at each other and smiled, and they all showed malicious eyes. HMPH, sample. Want to see me joking? No way. Harem, my lord, since I can drive it, I can rely on it. Bai Yu glanced at the melon-eating crowd, and walked over to Tsunere. For your weapon, of course. Seastone coins, of course, are not big for Vice Admiral's level, but for Admiral and the first-tier pirates, the effect is somewhat insufficient. Didn't I go to Hiyori specifically to discuss with you how to smelt the seastone twice, improve the purity and hardness of seastone, and increase his lethality to Conqueror's hockey powerhouses? Quote. Bai Yu smiled and drew a blueprint that captured Nami's determination to become stronger. Well, so that's how it is. Nami narrowed his eyes with a look of relief. Under the offensive of Bailey and becoming stronger, it sank in minutes. First blood. Humph. When discussing smelting seastone, you don't need to look for Kazuki Hiyori. Go look for a professional craftsman, the effect is much better, such as the caster of second-generation Onido, in Zoro's hands. The flowers opened quietly, and Robin's voice came from inside. The smelting work, of course, has to involve professionals. However, I don't know the specific industry of Wano Kuni. Hiwa is the supreme commander. Of course, it is the fastest for her to find someone to solve it. By the way, I also specially went to Hiyori to get the secret materials of the Kazuki family. They are the creators of the historical text of Noma, and the materials here are all top secret existences. With the help of the door fruit, Bai Yu took out a large pile of materials, held it in his hand and said proudly to Robin. The creator of the historical text, the top secret information left. Robin was hooked, his eyes glowing brighter than a light bulb. The whole person is plunged into top secret information. The matter of seeing her lover has long been thrown out of the sky by her. Double key. Double kill monsters. How about it? Bai Yu gave a provocative look and threw it to the melon eaters next to him. Sanji was stunned, and the angry young lady was captured in minutes. Even the glowing dishes he made didn't have such a quick effect. Also, there is more. Vivi has no desires, it's not that simple. The melon-eating crowd tugged at their necks and refused to admit defeat, and had a conversation with Bai Yu over the air. Put the last hope on Vivi. Chapter 284. Hi. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Vivi. Bai Yu turned his head and bumped into Vivi's weeping little face. Wet little eyes, like innocent cubs. The pitiful appearance makes people unable to bear to take it into his arms and feel distressed. Of course Bai Yu did just that. A dodge arrives in front of and behind Vivi. When she was caught off guard, she directly covered her hair with her hand. He gently stroked the soft hair tips under his palm. What? The people who eat melons let out a whining like a defeated dog. Before I saw the good show, I was forced to eat a big bowl of dog food. This taste is really sour. Bai Yu didn't bother to care about their faint sadness, all his eyes were on Wei Wei. This time I went to find Hiyori, but in order to find some information, it is related to where we are going next, Princess Shirahoshi of the Fishman Island, very similar to you. For the safety of the subjects of a country and the safety of the father and king, I have paid too much. Last time we went to the Fishman Island, Vivi, you didn't have time to come out. You should be able to pick him up this time. You must have a common language. Bai Yu gently rubbed the ends of Vivi's hair while shaving her nose. The appearance of intimacy quickly made a certain lovely princess put down her dissatisfaction. 940. Similar to a common language. Vivi murmured in a low voice, eyes widening as if thinking about something. Curious about the Princess Shirahoshi who exists only in imagination. There was a feeling that I couldn't wait to see her. Triple kill. Killing spree big kill. How about it? Bai Yu glanced coldly. Those who had bad intentions and wanted to see him perform in the Shira field. Damn it. Jealousy, over a group of single dogs, will condense into substantial black air. Hi, really high. Not only did you get the 3 at home, but also expanded a new map, as expected of you. Sanji couldn't help but give a thumbs up, his face full of envy. If he could have half the skill of the vice captain, he wouldn't have to spray nosebleeds on the beauty every day. Humph. Piece of cake. Not challenging at all. Bai Yu Tsunere raised his head. Turned around and gave the people who eat BCAA melons a look that they experienced. It's fun to watch. You should go to work. If you keep these piles of things in your eyes, if you don't take them away, I will confiscate them. Hey. A cold voice sounded on the deck, mocking the crew members. They all hugged what they got, ran away with buckets, and scattered as beasts. Franky. You wait. Looking at the calm sea outside the boat, Bai Yu frowned slightly. What's wrong? Franky, who was caught off guard and called by name, had a look of confusion on his face. Pulling a lot of special metals and rare materials, I want to go back to the central control room to study it. As soon as he took his steps, he stopped. What are your orders, Vice Captain? Franky felt a little nervous in his heart, and had the urge to wipe his cold sweat. Could it be that he just ate melons and watched a play, which made him dissatisfied and wanted to wear his own shoes? No, it can't be. The Vice Captain is not that kind of person. Needless to say, Franky was starting to panic. Can you give me any orders? Bai Yu said. I don't have a good air. Of course, to speed up, otherwise how long will it take us to arrive at the Fishman Island? Time is limited and we can't waste so much on the road. Looking at his expression, Bai Yu could already guess what he was thinking. Jinbei is like that, and so is Franky. Do I look like a bad guy? Bai Yu couldn't help touching the non-existent stubble and fell into deep thought. The cold current spread, and countless hexagonal ice flowers gathered together, condensing into a clear ice mirror. Cough. It's still so romantic and sweet, and Shiyu is extraordinary. Bai Yu showed a satisfied look at the figure in the mirror, and praised without hesitation. With a wave of the right hand, the ice mirror is scattered at will. Then he took Vivi, who was standing beside him, and walked towards the cabin deck. Naturally, he was so excited that even Robin didn't react for a while. Asshole. Beasts. A silver tooth smashed. After Robin and Nami reacted, Bai Yu led Vivi to the entrance of the cabin. The two women glanced at each other, and the opportunity could not be lost, and it would never come again. If it develops like this, it is not impossible to stop it, and it is not impossible to stop it. The strange aura caused the air pressure on the entire deck to drop. Super Franky. Fast flight mode. The wind breaks through. Franky, who is a transformed man, is not affected, he is still faithfully carrying out Bai Yu's orders to you. After dragging the large power bank, Enel injected energy, he put on his signature move. The raging thunder turned into a powerful thrust under the transformation of ball control. Directly with the sunshine miles, at an unimaginable speed, it quickly began to exercise. Franky. Nami, with messy hair, shoved his waist in anger. If it weren't for the little lowly Mei Li, a keto-splitting void, came in time, turned into a transparent barrier, and blocked the sunshine miles. When it poured in, a hurricane comparable to a typhoon had to blow her away. Nami. Realizing that he was in trouble again, Franky felt guilty and didn't have the confidence to speak. Hee. The hatch of the boat Bai Yu couldn't help but chuckled a few times. It's easier for someone to take Vivi away when someone tops the pack to attract hatred. Spray. What bad thoughts could Bai Yu have? Otherwise, with her current strength, it would be too difficult to face the situation. At most, when you open a small stove, you can communicate your feelings by the way. Absolutely by the way. So tired. Bai Yu couldn't help but stretch. His physical fitness is quite strong, otherwise it would be embarrassing to stand against the wall like a certain prince. Chapter 285. Retreat and Retreat. The best traditional dishes of different countries. Learn more. Hey, boss, you finally got out. As soon as he got out of the cabin, Bai Yu bumped into Jinbei who was carrying something. I haven't seen you for more than 10 days, are you alright? If Nami said you were in retreat and couldn't be disturbed, we would have slammed into the door to check it out. Fatty Lan hurriedly put down what he was holding and looked at Bai Yu with concern. On the face of the honest fish, innocence is written on the left, and simplicity is written on the right. As expected of an honest man, he took Nami's prevarication seriously. Fine. Bai Yu was speechless for a while, and his face was a little weird. After being Shichibukai for so many years, it is not easy to be fooled so easily. It can only be said that the world government has paid too much in order to maintain the reputation of human and Murloc. Boss, you've been in seclusion for so long, you must have become a lot stronger. The blue fat man's face is full of envy. The strength of the boss is already so strong, and he can still retreat from time to time. I have worked so hard for so long to awaken the power of Bingji. Compared with this, it is really inferior. Slightly improved. The corners of Bai Yu's mouth are somewhat humble. This is not to fool people, and it will not fool fish. But a real improvement. Retreat. For so long, in addition to opening a small stove, he still has something to gain. At least the loot he got just now was digested cleanly by him. It was already powerful, but with the enhancement of 10 artificial devil fruits, it could be said to be even more powerful. If he were to face the bald 5 elders again, there would be no more use of raids. Even if it is facing the enemy. Bai Yu is also 100% sure, crushing and beating him all the way until his mother doesn't know him. If you can control Baker Penga's technology, under the blessing of an endless stream of artificial devil fruits. Bai Yu's eyes were blurred, and he fell into a faint longing. The strength of the palm of the hand, which suddenly increased, gave him absolute confidence. Devil fruit, which was born naturally, was hard to come by, so he never thought about relying on Shira to suppress everything, but if he could produce it artificially in batches, then. If there is such a day, even confronting Uranus head-on might be a piece of cake. A huge double-layer semicircular bubble film shield surrounds the entire island. Although it is located in the deep sea, there are still clouds, the sun, and the fragrance of birds and flowers. It is called Island of Dreams. In the middle of the 2 layers of shields, there is a huge layer of air. Only on the islands of Sabayati, the coated ships can enter safely by following the correct path. 16. Today's island, but ushered in a group of uninvited guests. All Murlocs come out, violators, die. The sound of killing intent resounded through the entire seabed under the transmission of the special device. The sky-filled ship didn't even want to wait for a moment for the shield to open, and just ignored it, ramming into it arrogantly. Obviously, as long as the countermeasure device is activated, special means can be used to make the coating of the ship detach and fall into the impact of ocean currents. A big difference in their spirit. But none of the Murlocs present dared to give an order. In other words, even if it is an order, no one will dare to do it. The fish people inside the shield looked at the top of their heads in fear. Of the millions of people, not a single one dared to explode. Even if he regained his power, the sea god Neptune, who was the Fishman Emperor, could only stand below him respectfully, and he was not even qualified to look up at that person. Lord Stewfield, I didn't know that you came to the Fishman Island in person, and I would like to ask you to atone for your sins. Neptune bent down, a body that was far stronger than the average mermaid. Even with a crown on his head, he still bowed his head to the other side. Obviously, the other party was unreasonable and broke in like a robber. But as a landlord, he can only open his eyes and talk nonsense, taking all the responsibility on himself. He lowered his head, daring not to let the other party see that he didn't read at all. Because once exposed, that the Fishman Island ushered in is definitely the catastrophe. However, his attitude seemed to have no effect. I said let all the Murlocs come out, didn't you hear me? Being surrounded by the center, the old man who looked like a big man at first glance, his face was not only impatient, but also impatient. Yes, slapped in the face in front of the people. Not only did Neptune not dare to talk back, but he also nodded quickly. Quick, go and call out all the Murlocs and mermen, not one of them can be spared, quick. With a cold face, Neptune quickly urged his ministers to act. His anxious appearance made people suspect that his orange-red beard was about to burn in a hurry. For flowers. After a busy job, the fish that came one after another filled the open space on the island. Grown-ups, it's all here. After finally completing the task, Neptune and the ministers around him couldn't help but wipe their sweat. All here. I think there is one less. A cold voice came from the old man's mouth. The mustache bounced up and down with the sound, and the scattered anger made people restless. Why? How come? It's all here. After confirming with the ministers around him again and again, Neptune dared to bend over and speak. Where is Bai Wei? Xing. As a mermaid princess, where is she? The mustache sneered. .0. Dark eyes, direct to the heart. White. Shirahoshi. The little girl is seriously ill and has stayed in the hard-shell tower since she was a child and dare not come out. I hope the adults will forgive her sins. Neptune's pupils shrank. There is a feeling of being seen through the whole body. How could the world government, suddenly come looking for Shirahoshi? And even this being walked out of the Holy Land and made a special trip here. Could it be that Shirahoshi is a matter of Poseidon and has been discovered by the world government? The terrifying guess made Neptune's heart fall directly into the abyss. But the mustache above still did not mean to give up. I'm talking about letting all the Murlocs come out. Since Shirahoshi is a Murloc princess, isn't she a Murloc? The mustache is deaf. The cold eyes were filled with murderous intent. The ocean was turbulent, as if the currents were affected by his mood. Lord Five Elders, the little girl is frail, it's true. Five Elders. It's the Five Elders. Sure enough, the Five Elders. No wonder the Fishman Island Emperor Neptune, the god of the sea. He, who can even attend the World Summit, would lower his stance to such a degree. With a humble face like a dog. But when he pleaded for mercy, he was interrupted before he was halfway through. Are you trying to go against the will of the world government? The angry voice of the Beard Five Elders rang out on the field, directly stirring up the situation under the sea. The majestic pressure radiated from his body. The surrounding fish, shrimp, giant sharks scurried, and they couldn't even see their tails. 0. Chapter 286. The big ship that fell from the sky. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. The last shroud on the island is crumbling. Even the land on the edge of the island is showing signs of crumbling. On the ship under the coating, all kinds of heavy firearms gathered momentum, suppressing the resistance with the momentum of thunder. Lord Five Elders. Neptune pleaded, struggling. On one side is the Murloc people under the rule, and on the other is the most beloved only daughter Shirahoshi. One represents the present of the Murlocs, and the other symbolizes the future of the Murlocs. Humph. Beard Five Elders, unmoved. The pressure is getting stronger and stronger, like a pear, if Shirahoshi is not handed over. He is about to take action to destroy the Fishman Island, completely disappearing from the map. Seeing that the Fishman Island, which carries millions of people, is about to die in the stalemate. A streamer suddenly rushed out from the Fishman Island. Stop. Shirahoshi, who drove 940 with a shell and came out of the spiked tower, stopped in front of the Five Elders. The shells are opened and closed, revealing the beautiful shadows inside. Although her body more than 2 meters tall is a bit exaggerated compared to ordinary humans, it does not affect her beauty at all. What a nice view. Is this the most beautiful mermaid princess in the legend? Even the most beautiful beauties in the Holy Land can't compare at all. With an elegant and holy appearance, even as an enemy, you can't help but indulge in her beauty. An amazing face, a beauty that transcends biological limitations. Shirahoshi, why did you come out? Neptune looked at his beloved daughter nervously. The rush is almost done, there are ants on the hot pot. Father, I can't let you and everyone sacrifice for me. Shirahoshi gritted his white teeth. The appearance of weeping tears is enough to soften the hearts of all male creatures. 1. The mustache Five Elders in front of him is obviously an exception. Humph. It's finally out. I thought you wouldn't show up until I completely destroyed the Fishman Island. The mustache Five Elders snorted coldly, and the words were full of murderous intent. The life and death of millions of people on the island were completely ignored. We, the Fishman Island, are also a member of the world government. You are going too far. Shirahoshi was furious as he looked at the flamboyant warship above. What? The mustache Five Elders smiled contemptuously, and instead of answering, turned the conversation around. The World Summit is about to be held, and I am here to invite you here. You, the Murloc Emperor, and Princess Shirahoshi are present as an allied country to discuss important matters together. The mustache Five Elders spoke lightly, without the slightest respect. In a word, directly block the front and rear roads. If you want to be an ally, you have to go to the World Summit. If you don't want to go to the meeting, that's a proper betrayal of the party and kill you directly on the spot. My little girl and I will arrive in a few days, so please don't bother Five Elders. Neptune respectfully declined, making a final struggle. Said to go to a meeting, but if the other party bowed his head, it was not a successor. Now the pirates in the sea are rampant, and they burn, kill, and loot at every turn, so the world government specially sent a fleet to respond. Don't make a mistake, Neptune. The 8-character mustache smiled, his eyes full of coldness. What are the consequences of self-mistake? Then there is no need to wait for the pirates to wreak havoc. Of course, let us send you to heaven on the spot. There are 2 roads in front of you, one will die later, and the other will die on the spot. If they died on the spot, they would have to drag the fishmen to the island, and all their kin would die with them. What can he choose? He has no choice. I go. Princess Shirahoshi in the shell, with a face full of fearlessness. There is a precedent for Princess Otahime, and death has never been unacceptable to her. The person who knows the current affairs is Junji. It seems that Murlocs still have value. The mustache smiled with satisfaction, but it only appeared on his face, and the coldness in his eyes was unconcealed. If it weren't for Lord I am. Let's go. Princess Shirahoshi. A sarcastic voice sounded from the mouth of the Five Elders, as if it was inconvenient to take action, and could only use language as a means of venting their anger. Shirahoshi. Neptune's mouth was full of bitterness, and his huge body was full of coldness. Rubbing the trident's hand, he was extremely weak, even though he was holding a weapon, he didn't dare to be arrogant. Laugh. It's really touching father-daughter bond. The mustache sneered, his face full of mocking coldness. As if there is an inexorable hatred with the Murlocs, it has been secretly aimed at it. What? Help. Get out of the way. Seeing that the tragedy was about to be staged in front of us, there was a sudden sound of ghost crying and wolf howling. Abruptly, the originally miserable atmosphere was completely destroyed. You haven't come back to your senses yet. The radiance of the sun tree eve shines. Suddenly, it was covered with a shadow by a behemoth. Ship. What a big ship. How did he fall? It's in the water. He clearly rushed over. Whatever he is, run. His landing place is ours. The huge ship, at an unimaginable speed, hurriedly flies on the seabed. Like a wild horse that only prolapses, rampage. Directly cut through the last layer of shield on the Fishman Island, and smashed into a building ruins. Live, survive, are we all right? Too good. Fortunately, the Murlocs were all on the street, and they noticed the falling object early and had enough time to move around to avoid it, which basically caused no casualties. Otherwise, I don't know how many Murlocs there are, and before I know it, I have to receive a lunch. Who occupy an absolute advantage, and the task is about to be completed. Suddenly a ship jumped out, and the mustache couldn't help but frown. In particular, the other party is still hanging the pirate flag, and it always makes it feel faintly familiar. Invisible air waves, fluctuating in the sea. The barrier that shrouded the ship turned into a translucent gesture. Let you drive 0.0 indiscriminately. Now that everyone's barriers have been broken, what do you say? How can you blame me? It's obviously that your power system is not strong enough and is affected by ocean currents. Do you still blame me? I asked you to go to Sabayati to code and come again, you must not listen. I don't need it in the first place. The barrier that comes with the sunshine miles is enough to deal with it. Cut. If it is enough to deal with it, how can it be affected by the ocean current casually? That's not the reason why you insisted on tampering, you're a weak soul. I'll fight with you. Under a transparent barrier, several figures of different heights are clearly visible. There was a lot of quarrel and fight on the deck. It's them. But this time, the light in Neptune's eyes, first of all, the joy of being born out of desperation, and finally slowly extinguished. Chapter 287. Hostages sent to the door. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. How did they come? Could it be that there are also their traitors in the world government? The mustache's pupils shrank, and the eyebrows twisted into twists. The vicissitudes of life were first filled with suspicion, and then replaced by deep anxiety. If the other party has already been ambushed, then am I wrong? One less person. That guy is no more. The mustache five elders' eyes suddenly lit up, after confirming again and again that there was no trace of that person. Anxiety in my heart was replaced by ecstasy when necessary. Whether it is visual observation, or the feedback of seeing and hearing. Among the Straw Hats, the most terrifying and most feared Bai Yu. This time, for the first time ever, he wasn't on board. Dirty pirates. Guys, you are completely surrounded by me. I am alone, surrounded by a group of you. Beard five elders, feeling himself starting to swell. Surrender quickly. I'm in a good mood, maybe I can give you 12 a chance to go to the Ennie's lobby for trial. Otherwise, wait for you to be killed on the spot. The mustache five elders sneered. The look of victory returned to his face. The guy Bai Yu called was said to be a guy who attached great importance to his companions. If you can grab all the people in the opposite boat and use it to threaten him. Even if he can't be caught without his hands, at least he can be allowed to throw a rat. Just like their current situation, it is not that there is no countermeasure, but the table can only be lifted, and there is no room for maneuver. Surrender. There's no such thing as surrender in my dictionary. I'm the man who wants to become one piece. Still arguing about right and wrong. Luffy. Hearing the word surrender, the spirit came instantly. Angrily stood on the deck and shouted. Slow. Act recklessly. The mustache five elders sneered, and his icy eyes looked fixed on the Straw Hats. If it was on land, he might not be so sure yet. After all, although there are many people from world government, he is the only real expert. The members of the CP organization, relying on special means, can deal with trash fish fairly well. If you really meet Admiral's strength, it's really not very useful. But now it's under the sea. In particular, when the opponent landed, the last layer of shield of the Fishman Island was completely smashed. Hee. There are so many capable people on your ship. The mustache five elders sneered. The words that seem to be praised are no different from the death knell that is ringing at this time. The alias of the secret treasure of the sea, but the one who hates the sea. In a piece of Wang Yang, as long as the opponent dares to step out of the shield on the boat, all the holders of devil fruit will lose their power completely, and they will be half useless if they don't die. Not everyone can ignore the drawbacks like the five of them. Damn. The members of Straw Hat crew shrank their pupils one after another. Jinbei is okay, Grandmaster Water Style, who has recently mastered the power of ice and cleanliness, and his strength on the seabed does not drop but rises. But others don't get that treatment. Main, Luffy, Enel, Ace, Robin, Brooke. Directly declare cool. That is, Zoro, Nami, Jinbei still have some fighting power. And on the bottom of the sea, Zoro, who is a swordsman, is limited by the resistance of the sea. Can each other. Standing in the water without any scruples, Kamui rolled up 1,000 waves. At first glance, he is not affected by the sea Mizukage at all, and then thinks of his strength as the five elders. The strength that changes every day, and the unreachable distance, it is almost impossible for people to breathe. Even Jinbei, who was shrouded in ice crystals and isolated from everything, felt numb in the bottom of the sea and wanted to run away with oil on the soles of his feet. Surrender. The mustache looked at Luffy and his party with a smile, as if looking at the prey that was about to arrive. Dream. An unwavering voice resounded on the vast ocean floor. Anyone who is not deaf can hear the indestructible will in his voice. In the swordsman's dictionary, there is only fighting with all one's strength. All kinds of long knives popped out of his arms. Zoro, with a black knife in his mouth, slowly walked out of the boat. Ling Tian's sword intent emanated from him, and his resolute gaze pointed directly at the mustache. The other two large sharp knives also took their places after asking for a sword flower. Three knife flow Zoro green algae head. Join. How dare you resist? Stubborn guy, let me make you face the reality. The five elders glared at the blowing beard, their big eyes full of anger. As if feeling his dissatisfaction, the calm seabed. Twilight. Move. Boom boom boom. Waves that are more terrifying than stormy days are staged in the 10,000-meter deep sea. The power that swept the infinite sea water, as long as you ponder a little, you can guess the horror. 3 swords, mystery, 3,000 worlds. Endless swordsmanship, endless swordsmanship. All turned into a dazzling slash in Zoro's hands, with the will to cut everything, soaring into the sky. Act recklessly. Infinite water flow, in the angry gaze of the mustache. It turned into a huge spear, as if it was inserted from the sea, to smash everything through the bottom of the sea. Boom. Facts have proved that it is not always possible to explode seeds, even the protagonist group is no exception. No matter how determined the will is, in front of absolute power, it is still difficult to turn up the wind and waves. With just a slight resistance, the spear broke through Zoro's attack at the cost of the broken head. Pursue the victory, with an indomitable momentum. It rushed directly to the Sunshine Miles, which was shrouded in a transparent barrier. Break the barrier directly, and let the 940 capable persons on the ship lose their power due to the curse of the sea. Attacking the enemy will save you. Ruyi's abacus is a wonderful thief. Damn it. The cold wave swept through and turned into ice crystals. Jinbei wanted to return to defense, but it was difficult to reach him in an instant. Nami's railgun is fast enough, but under the resistance of the sea, its power is severely damaged. Not to mention other means. Gia Gia Gia. The mustache laughed wildly. As long as, just take another breath to break the barrier. The Straw Hat crew is about to fall into his hands. That guy Bai Yu can't imagine being so rampant again. With the hostages in hand, the offensive and defensive potential is different. Just one breath. The imminent victory, turned into endless joy, swept his eyes. But all of this stopped before an unremarkable portal. The door opened and closed slightly, revealing the vast white light inside. Damn it. Arrived now. Even if it is you, it is useless, the general trend is set, and I will win. Mustache pupils shrink. An unpleasant feeling emerged from his heart. Especially after seeing the figure behind the door clearly, the whole person was half cold. Anger starts from the heart, and evil grows from the gut. From the dark fear breeds ultimate's anger. Self-contained and powerful, he didn't hold back a bit under the anger, and burst out with all his strength, heading directly towards the half-open door, and rushed away brazenly. Chapter 288. On the level of lying with eyes open. The best traditional dishes of different countries. Learn more. Even if it's you. Never try to block my blow. His eyes opened and closed, anger erupted from his eyes, and the seawater within 3 feet was steaming. With endless anger as the die, the decisive blow brewed into the past, like this. The terrifying ocean current swept through, even with the sun tree Eve as the source of sunlight. The bottom of the sea was still unstoppable and became dark. In front of the door 3 to 5 feet high, in front of this Shinso, which runs through the heavens and the earth, not even an ant can count. Yes, are you dead? Neptune closed his eyes weakly, his tall body full of joy. Island, the island is going to be destroyed. The Murlocs were running around, destroying everything, and they had already fallen into deep despair. Damn it, how dare you sneak attack? Zoro bit the hilt of the sword, and a sword force that he had never seen before condensed on his body. Bai Yu, Nami, in grief and anger, flashed with electric lights all over his body. Don't want to hurt the boss. The cold current spread from fatty land, turning into a long road of ice crystals. Boom. Just when everyone is watching. The door that was slightly opened and closed suddenly opened, revealing the endless white light inside. An ordinary foot came out of the white light. Humph. Came out. So what? It's just courting death to show up now. The mustache snorted coldly, without the slightest fear on his face. In his smug eyes, he seemed to have seen Bai Yu bleeding on the spot. What the evil chief copies, the Demon King surpasses Roger's pirates. There are a lot of names, but the strength is nothing more than that. With a sneer, a look of disdain flowed from his eyes. Yesterday wipe. Rub. Rub. Freezing sound. Was it the hand of the Murloc? Bozzy frowned, looking at the ice crystals that suddenly appeared, feeling a little annoyed. No, this kind of speed is definitely not something that mere Murlocs can achieve. Is it? As if thinking of something, a trace of unease flashed on his face. It's him. The mustache's pupils shrank, looking at the slender figure walking out from behind the portal. Angry eyes, occupied by the plain white and cold snap of ultimate. Obviously he just walked out lightly, and he didn't see any power emanating from him, but an endless cold current rose out of nowhere. Thousands of miles away under the sea. For the first time in 10,000 years, traces of hexagonal ice flowers appeared. The icy cold current, even if it is not touched, makes people feel a chill in the spine. The long sword formed by ocean currents began to show signs of crystallization in just an instant. Frozen. Frozen. How could such power exist? As this god. God has come to save us. Lord Sea God. The long spear running through the sea was actually frozen by an ultimate cold current, which stopped his progress, and even the ocean current Uzumaki that propelled him turned into a sculpture of ice. Ultimate's frozen as jaw-dropping to watch. Eternal sin ice prison. Freeze all sins in the ice purgatory and sink forever. Close black lens bracket. Well, even the world might freeze and freeze. Jinbei, who holds the power of the same source. The corners of Doda's eyes stared at the world of ice and snow in front of him, and the whole person was going crazy. The cold current freezes the sea water and turns it into ultimate ice, forming a hollow ice world. Da da da. A slender figure walked out from behind the door and stepped on the path paved with ice crystals. In turbid seawater, the footsteps were still very clear, as if every step was on the hearts of everyone. You're stronger again. Mustache's throat was a little choked, and he couldn't help swallowing. With a calm face, he still couldn't hide the faint fear in his eyes. Shout the dog. It's not that the gift is an artificial devil fruit. This guy can't stand the loophole, can't he strengthen it anymore? So what's going on right now? Even before the sword was drawn out, such a strong ice-blocking power was produced in a single face-to-face. What the hell is going on? Could it be that this great demon king is majoring in ice power? In the heart of the mustache five elders, they were scolding their mother, and they were shocked and frightened. I am afraid that these hundreds of years of shock have been spent in one day, and a group of rich inner dramas. I heard, it seems like someone wants to take my fiancé. Bai Yu's expression was indifferent, unable to distinguish between emotions. It was as if the ethereal divine sound from Tianyu sounded on the bottom of the sea. But on the side of the world government, it sounded no different from the voice of Juyu demon demanding his life. Misunderstanding. Our world government wants to invite Princess Shirahoshi and King Neptune to go to Mariajoy as an allied country to participate in the supreme meeting of the world government to discuss military affairs. The mustache five elders grimaced at the corners of their mouths. After seeing Bai Yu's terrifying power, he really didn't want to fight against him again. Too scary. The power is beyond imagination, no wonder he even folds the weapon inside. Ah, misunderstanding. Then you just shot my companion, is it a misunderstanding? Bai Yu smiled contemptuously. He directly endured it and went back, without giving him any face to change. Of course. It's all my fault that the old man was old and frail. He couldn't control his power, and he lost his square inch. This mistake caused a catastrophe, and I am willing to make up for the loss. The mustache did not blink his eyes, and he said the same thing as the truth. Years, old age. Neptune's eyes stared like copper bells. God is such an old man, old and frail, and he can still make this kind of attack that runs through the sea. Why don't you go up to the sun and stand shoulder to shoulder? Shameless. The little thief cat Nami couldn't help but scold. He was able to aim so accurately when he missed it, and headed towards the sunshine miles brightly, with no deviation at all, and smashed Zoro's sword into pieces abruptly. Zoro doesn't look at him, only promises that he has the sword power on his body, and keeps dignified. The kung fu of opening your eyes and talking nonsense, of course, is the same thing twice. In the face of the doubts pointed out by thousands of people, the Beard Five Elders is still calm. Anyway, he threw his face away, just killed the misunderstanding and refused to recognize it. Although it is a bit embarrassing to be in a high position and have no face and skin, but if it is compared to risking your life and fighting this big devil. Mustache Five Elders said the face thing was worth a few dollars. It's not that he hasn't lost face, as long as anyone who sees him ashamed doesn't show up in front of his eyes, it's not like he has never lost face. In the case of the Straw Hat Group, while the battle is fierce, the pirates brutally attacked and annihilated them all. It is also a good way to die. It will not damage the majesty of the world government, but it can also cover up the matter. In the blink of an eye, the Mustache Five Elders was in his heart and sentenced all the soldiers to death. Chapter 288. On the level of lying with eyes open. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Even if it's you, never try to block my blow. His eyes opened and closed, anger erupted from his eyes, and the seawater within 3 feet was steaming. With endless anger as the die, the decisive blow brewed into the past, like this. The terrifying ocean current swept through, even with the sun tree Eve as the source of sunlight. The bottom of the sea was still unstoppable and became dark. In front of the door 3 to 5 feet high, in front of this Shinso, which runs through the heavens and the earth, not even an ant can count. Yes, are you dead? Neptune closed his eyes weakly, his tall body full of joy. The island is going to be destroyed. The Murlocs were running around, destroying everything, and they had already fallen into deep despair. Damn it, How dare you sneak attack? Zoro bit the hilt of the sword, and a sword force that he had never seen before condensed on his body. Bai Yu, Nami, in grief and anger, flashed with electric lights all over his body. Don't want to hurt the boss. The cold current spread from fatty land, turning into a long road of ice crystals. Boom. Just when everyone is watching. The door that was slightly opened and closed suddenly opened, revealing the endless white light inside. An ordinary foot came out of the white light. Humph. Came out. So what? It's just courting death to show up now. The mustache snorted coldly, without the slightest fear on his face. In his smug eyes, he seemed to have seen Bai Yu bleeding on the spot. What the evil chief copies, the Demon King surpasses Roger's pirates. There are a lot of names, but the strength is nothing more than that. With a sneer, a look of disdain flowed from his eyes. Yesterday wipe. Rub. Freezing sound. Was it the hand of the Murloc? Bozzy frowned, looking at the ice crystals that suddenly appeared, feeling a little annoyed. No, this kind of speed is definitely not something that mere Murlocs can achieve. Is it? As if thinking of something, a trace of unease flashed on his face. It's him. The mustache's pupils shrank, looking at the slender figure walking out from behind the portal. Angry eyes, occupied by the plain white and cold snap of ultimate. Obviously he just walked out lightly, and he didn't see any power emanating from him, but an endless cold current rose out of nowhere. Thousands of miles away under the sea. For the first time in 10,000 years, traces of hexagonal ice flowers appeared. The icy cold current, even if it is not touched, makes people feel a chill in the spine. The long sword formed by ocean currents began to show signs of crystallization in just an instant. Frozen. How could such power exist? As this God has come to save us. Lord Sea God. The long spear running through the sea was actually frozen by an ultimate cold current, which stopped his progress, and even the ocean current Uzumaki that propelled him turned into a sculpture of ice. Ultimate's frozen as jaw-dropping to watch. Eternal sin ice prison. Freeze all sins in the ice purgatory and sink forever. Close black lens bracket. Well, even the world might freeze and freeze. Jinbei, who holds the power of the same source. The corners of Doda's eyes stared at the world of ice and snow in front of him, and the whole person was going crazy. The cold current freezes the seawater and turns it into ultimate ice, forming a hollow ice world. Da. A slender figure walked out from behind the door and stepped on the path paved with ice crystals. In turbid seawater, the footsteps were still very clear, as if every step was on the hearts of everyone. You're stronger again. Mustache's throat was a little choked, and he couldn't help swallowing. With a calm face, he still couldn't hide the faint fear in his eyes. Shout the dog. It's not that the gift is an artificial devil fruit. This guy can't stand the loophole, can't he strengthen it anymore? So what's going on right now? Even before the sword was drawn out, such a strong ice-blocking power was produced in a single face-to-face. What the hell is going on? Could it be that this great demon king is majoring in ice power? In the heart of the mustache five elders, they were scolding their mother, and they were shocked and frightened. I am afraid that these hundreds of years of shock have been spent in one day, and a group of rich inner dramas. I heard, it seems like someone wants to take my fiancé. Bai Yu's expression was indifferent, unable to distinguish between emotions. It was as if the ethereal divine sound from Tianyu sounded on the bottom of the sea. But on the side of the world government, it sounded no different from the voice of Juyu demon demanding his life. Misunderstanding. Our world government wants to invite Princess Shirahoshi and King Neptune to go to Mariajoy as an allied country to participate in the supreme meeting of the world government to discuss military affairs. The mustache five elders grimaced at the corners of their mouths. After seeing Bai Yu's terrifying power, he really didn't want to fight against him again. Too scary. The power is beyond imagination, no wonder he even folds the weapon inside. Ah, misunderstanding. Then you just shot my companion, is it a misunderstanding? Bai Yu smiled contemptuously. He directly endured it and went back, without giving him any face to change. Of course. It's all my fault that the old man was old and frail. He couldn't control his power, and he lost his square inch. This mistake caused a catastrophe, and I am willing to make up for the loss. The mustache did not blink his eyes, and he said the same thing as the truth. Years, old age. Neptune's eyes stared like copper bells. God is such an old man, old and frail, and he can still make this kind of attack that runs through the sea. Why don't you go up to the sun and stand shoulder to shoulder? Shameless. The little thief cat Nami couldn't help but scold. He was able to aim so accurately when he missed it, and headed towards the sunshine miles brightly, with no deviation at all, and smashed Zoro's sword into pieces abruptly. Zoro doesn't look at him, only promises that he has the sword power on his body, and keeps dignified. The kung fu of opening your eyes and talking nonsense, of course, is the same thing twice. In the face of the doubts pointed out by thousands of people, the Beard Five Elders is still calm. Anyway, he threw his face away, just killed the misunderstanding and refused to recognize it. Although it is a bit embarrassing to be in a high position and have no face and skin, but if it is compared to risking your life and fighting this big devil. Mustache Five Elders said the face thing was worth a few dollars. It's not that he hasn't lost face, as long as anyone who sees him ashamed doesn't show up in front of his eyes, it's not like he has never lost face. In the case of the Straw Hat group, while the battle is fierce, the pirates brutally attacked and annihilated them all. It is also a good way to die. It will not damage the majesty of the world government, but it can also cover up the matter. In the blink of an eye, the Mustache Five Elders was in his heart and sentenced all the soldiers to death. Chapter 290. The Awakening Power of the Five Elders. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Mouth. On the ice crystal giant hammer that occupies half of the field of vision, there is the ultimate ice seal from the underworld. Just a glance at it makes people feel that the soul is frozen and time is still. Everything in all things cannot escape the eternal judgment of this underworld. Boom. The ice crystal giant hammer suddenly fell, breaking through the endless sea water, and finally hit the final blow. Open black lens bracket eternal calamity, Pluton ice pad. Will die, absolutely will die. Although he had already relegated to the second line and had not started for many years, the instincts of the strong who had experienced hundreds of battles were not completely silent. Especially in this thought of life and death, the intuition of the crazy warning directly turned him into a hedgehog with frizzy hair. Fruit of mind power awakened. Paramesha, the fruit of psychic power that has been silent for an unknown number of years. Finally in the deep sea, his radiance bloomed again. I didn't expect you to be able to push me to this point just by probing, what a terrible new generation. Translucent silver particles surround him, setting him off like a god. Originally irritable and angry, the Mustache Five Elders was replaced by icy cold when his face was exposed, like a violent Zon, and instantly turned into a paralyzed face. Indifferent and ruthless, like the eyes of a god, there is no fluctuation. Heartless water. The silver particles disintegrated instantly and merged into the sea water in front of them. The deep blue sea water turned into a little silver light when concubine, and the dark seabed was illuminated by 940 a lot. Wuxen Chaos Water God Kill. The silvery seawater gathers into the bright silver Madara, which becomes the only light source under the sea. The dream-like beauty is mixed with infinite murderous intent. In the blink of an eye, he crossed an infinite distance and forcibly moved towards the ice crystal giant hammer from the underworld to greet him. Rumbling. As soon as the two touched, it is a huge impact like the collision of heaven and earth. The terrifying air waves and the ocean currents directly swept away everything. Those with less strength than Shichibukai have no chance to even struggle in the aftermath of the battle. They will be swept away by the ocean currents in minutes. As for life and death, then it's just a matter of fate. Dead, definitely dead. That kind of terrifying attack is simply not something that humans can resist. Even the dignified Five Elders, in the hands of the vice captain, have no resistance. The terrifying battle made people sigh, and they didn't even have the qualifications to intervene. But with a sense of pride, Straw Hat Crew couldn't help but puff out his chest. This is our vice captain, boss man. Cough. The fruit of using emotions as fuel. As expected of the power of the Five Elders, it is truly a strange fruit ability. Bai Yu slapped his mouth and saw through the details as soon as they fought. This kind of ability is really suitable for the protagonist to explode seeds, you don't need to open it when you hang up, just come and kill it with a memory. But, although the eyes are hot, you still have to get rid of the person first. After all, hot-blooded iron law, there is no smoke without injury. A stern look flashed in Bai Yu's eyes, and when he turned his right hand, Jin Kun Loyan appeared in his palm. The daring art master, he directly carried his long sword and headed towards the battlefield where the sea water and ice crystals were raging. It is advisable to chase the poor bandits with the remaining bravery, and not to be called the overlord of learning. The world government has hidden it for so many years, who knows what kind of weird props are in it. Don't take advantage of his illness, kill him, speed up the shot, and wait for him to react, but it will not be so easy. One knife flow, profound meaning, 3,600 troubles wind. A pitch-black sword light flashed past, like an incomparably agile swimming fish. In the blink of an eye, endless slashes were sent out, forming a natural disaster like a sword blade storm, directly shrouding the place where the ice hammer fell. The dazzling sword light blocked all means of peeping. Not to mention seeing and hearing, even if you look at it with your eyes, you will feel that you are pierced and bleed by the sharp edge inside. After a full quarter of an hour, the overwhelming sword light finally stopped. Or the bystanders with their heads bowed or their eyes closed, dare to raise their eyes and open their eyes. Yeah, scary. Natural disaster. This is simply a natural disaster. Obviously they are all capable, why are they so terrifying in the deep sea? Under the deep sea of 10,000 BCAA meters, originally living alone in Wang Yang's world, strangely air appeared. Although the sword light and slash had disappeared, the terrifying sword intent was immortalized, and it radiated endless power when it stood in place, directly traversing the flow of water. Cough cough cough. Mustache Five Elders came out of the blade storm with a pale face. I don't know how many times he was cut on his body. If he hadn't had the power to forcefully spliced it together and glued it together with brute force, his hand-sewn suit would have been turned to ashes in an instant. After all, not every piece of clothing is the Hulk's pants. The characteristic of never bursting clothes has never existed in the world of One Piece. Life is quite big. Bai Yu touched Humang, who didn't exist, and smiled playfully at the corner of his mouth. Poor. It's almost enough. This time I admit it. What should I do? The eyes are silvery white, vast and godless, like a god. But it doesn't mean the beard 5 elders, and they won't even weigh the pros and cons. If you can't beat it, you will admit it. The orthodox devil fruit has no side effects of losing your mind. But, whether it is to admit defeat or surrender, the premise is that both parties must agree. Cut. A stern look flashed in Bai Yu's eyes, and he, who was holding Jin Kunluo, turned into a sword light directly, and he rushed forward with one sword. Damn it. The mustache 5 elders couldn't help but cursed. Bai Yu pointed directly at the key points, and the current situation forced him to retreat half a point. Wuxen high-pressure water blade. Holding it in empty hands, the sea water around him gathered crazily and turned into 2 long knives made of pure water. The azure blue sword is laced with silver light, like a dream, making people fall into a dream, like 2 unparalleled works of art. People can't put it down. A short fat man with a bad temper, he still wants to fight me with a mere water jet. I really don't know what to say. Bai Yu smiled coldly, his eyes full of disdain. He would never admit that he had taken a fancy to his means of condensing weapons. He simply felt that the sword to accompany the hero, such an extraordinary means at first sight, was occupied by the short fat man on the opposite side. It was really too bright and dusty. Just think of a way to fix it. Bai Yu's eyes glowed and he made a decision. It only takes a while to be strong or not, but it takes a lifetime to be handsome or not. As Bai Yu, who suppressed everything by force, he said that he had left the vulgar taste. Damn it. What's the point of being arrogant? If you can beat me, let's talk about it. A water blade made of high pressure is not something that only has an appearance, especially when there is still material inside. It's not just 1 + 1 = 2, it's that simple. Chapter 291. The first 5 elders to die. Light. The best traditional dishes of different countries. Best culinary dishes of world. Pin pin pin. The sound of gold and stone colliding has not stopped since the short battle. Not to mention Jin Kunluo made of metal material, even the water blade formed by high-pressure water flow started to give out continuous sparks due to severe friction. Don't look at the mustache, short, fat, and short-tempered, just like a gourd that eats chili peppers. But the kung fu in his hands is not weak at all. Compared to pure swordsmen, relying on the power of thought to advance the attack, abandoning the absolute rationality of emotion to make calculations, the unique swordsmanship of thought power is really eye-opening for Bai Yu. Seeing his heart-hunting joy, he even put the power of destruction on the shelf. 8000 style swordsmanship, Zoro swordsmanship, Wano-kuni swordsmanship, self-realization swordsmanship. Relying on all kinds of swordsmanship methods, he fought against him abruptly. Overwhelmed by the swordsmanship and swordsmanship, it was performed smoothly from Bai Yu's hands, and Zoro was mesmerized by watching it. But, hand-to-hand combat is the most dangerous battle after all. However, when it comes to Gai Cha, the two of them have already turned 1,800 moves. Although the power of his thoughts is bizarre enough to overwhelm the dexterity of his hands, he is facing Bai Yu. The number of sword marks on his body increased one by one, and the blood dyed the suit into wine red, as if he had drank a lot of blood, but his face became paler. He is exhausted and is about to die. Although the strength stands under the ceiling of the world, the strength of the mustache itself is not truly endless. After being consumed again and again, the damage is superimposed one by one. He, almost, can't hold it anymore. Bastard. You have to drive the old man to a dead end. Do you really think I dare not die with you? Mustache 5 elders have cracked teeth and exposed blue veins on their heads. In the indifferent silver pupils, emotional fluctuations appeared for the first time. The name, anger. Being able to occupy such a position is definitely not a rhetoric, it is only possible that he came out of the bloody sea, and he would rather be a jade than a tile, and he is definitely not lacking. Seeing that a battle of divine power was about to begin, everyone who knew what was behind it was panicked, but Bai Yu remained indifferent. Ah, are you sure you can still push? Bai Yu chuckled lightly, and the corners of his mouth raised a nice arc. Although this smile, in the eyes of the mustache, it is almost like a devil's smile. Inspire. The mustache 5 elders couldn't help but click. Although it can't be said that the old god is there, but he has always been calm in his heart, and finally he can't sit still. Move me. His eyes were furious, and his silver pupils were bloodshot. The neck has risen to the color of pig liver, and it is almost enough to exert all the strength of feeding. But the reality, still bloody cruel. Don't talk about big moves, you can't even hold back a fart. It's hit. The heart of the bearded 5 elders completely sank into the abyss. Under the tactic of boiling the frog in warm water, the power in his body has already been exhausted. The trickle-down ability, and the crippled body, are not even qualified to motivate Uranus. Before he manipulated Frost Mighty, where he was venting his anger for his crewmates, he was clearly deliberately letting himself fight with him, depleting his own fruit power. There is also the terrifying Blade Storm, which is constantly wearing down his body and consuming his strength. The last close hand-to-hand battle was not at all a whim, it was clearly a blunt knife to cut the flesh, let oneself relax his vigilance, and feel that it was nothing more than that. Falling into a state of being overwhelmed with coping, before thinking about it, you lose your strength bit by bit. Until now. Although the strength can still be squeezed out by 1 or 2%, but you want to motivate Uranus. It is definitely a drop in the bucket. Even if you take life yuan to offset most of the consumption, it is still the same. You think I'm on the 3rd floor. Actually, I'm on the 5th floor. Do you think I'm on the 6th floor? Actually, my hand is in the atmosphere. The corners of Bai Yu's mouth curved, and there was a hint of pride in his eyes. Since he appeared, he has been laying out the layout. After so long, he is finally able to close the net. Fortunately, he bet right. Even for the 5 elders, the cost of using Uranus is definitely not low. Just wanting to promote this kind of terrifying Earth-Moon system is a fool's errand. Even a permission dog is no exception. Hoo-hoo, he shot at me again and again, and now he wants to beat my wife. If I kill one without charging any interest, I will really be bullied by Bai Yu. Bai Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, filled with cold killing intent. Damn, I can't die here. The dark eyes of the mustache suddenly became extremely bright, and a strong desire to survive came out. When the light returned, the pale complexion became ruddy. Ask for flowers, oh. The terrifying thought power radiated out, sweeping all the forces within its power, and it was a bit stronger than the peak moment. I originally wanted to leave you with a whole corpse, but it seems that now I can only make you die. A pity expression appeared on Bai Yu's face. The power of destruction entrenched in the heart spurted out, dyeing Jin Kunluo pure black. Just now it was a dull knife to cut meat, but now it is cutting grass and rooting. One knife style, Aoyi, Shura. Bai Yu started with a big move. He didn't carelessly despise him just because he was dying. He doesn't want to leave any beginning and end, these old remnants of the old times, one is harder than the other. Use the power of destruction to destroy the world as a declaration of retreat. He didn't believe there was any way to escape under such an attack. Is it? The old man crosses the sea. To actually want to capsize a ship in a sewer and die in such a place. The light in the mustache's eyes gradually dimmed, and the last hope was ruthlessly annihilated. The seabed that no one can see under 10,000 meters is actually the burial place of the world's supreme power, the 5 elders. For the much anticipated them, this silent death. There's really nothing else to say except for the 2 words sarcasm. All the things that blocked the road were completely destroyed by the pure black long knife, and not even the slag was left. Without exception. As Jin Kunluo approached inch by inch, the life of the beard 5 elders gradually came to an end. Struggling to the death, he closed his eyes as if resigned, quietly waiting for death. 10 inches, 9 inches, 8 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches, 1 inch. Close at hand. It's now. Mustache 5 elders' eyes snapped open. In the dim eyes, there was a bright silver light that was comparable to the moon. At the last moment, within a short distance, he actually broke out an attack far exceeding the peak. Eyes on the sword, the pure and incomparable psychic power disappeared in a flash, and directly slammed into Bai Yu Chao. But he was blocked by Bai Yu's knife and stopped him abruptly. Under the consumption of the power of destruction, the silver light gradually decayed. But on the face of the mustache 5 elders, unexpectedly, there was no disappointment, but a faint smile. 0. Chapter 292. Bai Yu is going to roll over. Has a problem. Bai Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, just realizing something was wrong. Next moment, a bright golden light appeared beside him. Suddenly, a sturdy guy appeared, bathed in golden light all over his body, and the dazzling golden light had already formed its essence. Iron fists fluttered, sonic booms were repeated, and even the void seemed to be broken by this, ultimate's physical power. The mustache 5 elders made a fatal blow, and the silver light long sword they struck was not completely wiped out. The golden light of the sneak attack lit up again, and the joint shot was extremely tacit, directly hitting Bai Yu, the 7-inch weakness where the old force was gone and the new force was not yet born. Absolutely unavoidable. Bai Yu. Danger. The golden light burst out brazenly, with terrifying strength, the sea water was instantly evaporated into a void, and the water vapor that covered the sky directly covered the entire battlefield. Under these fists, the bottom of the sea can be said to be turned upside down by 940. Bai Yu. Nami screamed hard, and his voice broke. Deputy Captain. The crew members who were protected by the barrier couldn't help but cry out. The situation that was turned upside down in a split second was truly heart-wrenching and stunned. They all narrowed their eyes and looked into the mist. However, in the water vapor that covered the sky, in addition to the golden light beams that were constantly transmitted, the silver water flow continued to sweep, and all kinds of sword lights and ice were flying, and no one could be seen clearly. The restrictions on observation Hawkeye, and the line of sight, are even worse than the blade storm that Bai Yu used before. How to do. Nami was in a hurry like an ant flashing from a hot pot, and the weather stick in her hand was about to sweat when she held it. Nami, don't worry, the golden light just now was so fast, and there was that kind of dazzling light. Although I didn't see anyone clearly, there were 9 out of 10 who shot it was Kizaru Admiral. Looking at the restless Nami, Fatty Lan couldn't help but comfort him. Dudu's big eyes, dripping and rolling, gave unreliable guesses in minutes. Second Uncle Kizaru. Bai Yu, then it must be fine. Second Uncle will not hurt Bai Yu. At most, it's just a scene. Luffy's eyes lit up and he let go of his worries. Yes, yes, it's not like you haven't seen what he did. The deputy captain must be fine. Hee, even if he does his best, the deputy captain can't be in trouble. That's right. A half-crippled 5 elders, plus Marine Admiral only, how could he hurt the deputy captain? He was caught off guard just now, the deputy captain must be about to show his power soon. The little friends of the Straw Hats began to help each other. Between Yan Yan and Yan Yan, the worry on his face was dispelled by 90%. It's not that I look down on Kizaru's strength as an admiral, it's purely a habit of this guy's paddling, and it's hard to make people think that he will be deadly. Besides, Deputy Captain, Boss Bai Yu, is not a vegetarian. Straw Hat crew are all concentric. Real. Nami was skeptical. Of course, the Straw Hat's mission is unequivocal. After all, the one who attacked was Huang Sir. Everyone has confidence in their hearts, whether it's Bai Yu or Kizaru. That. Just as everyone was having a good time, waiting for Bai Yu to appear safely, Neptune's trembling voice suddenly rang out. What's wrong? As the strongest man outside the boat, Zoro turned his head and spoke first. I seem to know the person who shot just now. Neptune, his face was pale, his body joints were twitching constantly. If it wasn't for the trident in his hand, it was truly unbearable to suspect that he would fall unsteadily. Well, what did I think it was? Wasn't it Pelusilino Kizaru? Fatty Land shook his hand and said nonchalantly. The strength reaches this level, the effect of the shot is still golden, who else can be besides him? Although the color of the suit seems to be a bit strange, but I don't want people to want to change the taste. Anyway, Huang Sir's strength, it feels a lot stronger, and it really is mixed with the deputy captain. Fatty Land scatters his thoughts and thinks wildly. No, that's Andre Artemis. Neptune waved his trident and shouted, his eyes were full of bright red, and he looked like a madman. Andre, what Artemis? Fatty Land frowned, his hideous fish head was full of suspicion. A name never heard before, who is he? Neptune's words attracted Straw Hat crew, who was in the presence of the old god, and couldn't help but look away. He, like that mustache, is the most powerful man in the world, the 5 elders. The dignified Murloc Emperor, just like the cassette tape of Kajuan. After being stuck for a long time, he barely opened his mouth and said the words in his heart. 5 elders. A stone stirred up 1,000 waves, Neptune's words, when the time came, the people present could no longer sit still. It's really not a yellow monkey. The cold sweat on Fatty Land's head instantly flowed down. Absolutely, it's him. I have met at the Supreme Council, the 5 people who control the supreme power. Neptune's resolute words were filled with deep fear. The reason for the twitching of the limbs has also been found. Wherever you are tired, it clearly comes out. 2 5 elders shot at the same time, and one of them was a sneak attack. Everyone who realized the seriousness of the matter had their hearts hanging in their throats. It's not as simple as Kizaru's shot. Not to mention the attitude, the 5 elders will never fight like Kizaru, it is definitely a fight with all their strength, and there is no possibility of letting go. It's good not to risk your life to fight. Just their strength. The strength of the 5 elders is obvious to all, and it is not too much to say a natural disaster. Judging from the power displayed so far, even if the ancient weapons are not used, it may not be impossible for one person to draw them down with one's own strength. Being caught off guard by this kind of opponent sneak attack, the damage caused is absolutely unimaginable. 0.0 with a seriously injured body, facing 2 opponents of this level, the greatest crisis in history has come. Boss, you must not be in trouble. Jinbei, who did not dare to rush into the battlefield and was afraid to deliver food, could only pray on the spot no matter how worried he was in his heart. Gritting his teeth, his face was stiff, and he tried his best to move the ice crystals in his hands, sending the cold current into the water vapor. I hope that more or less, it can bring some help to Bai Yu, even if it is insignificant, but it is the only thing he can do now. Bai Yu. Nami was not so calm. When she thought that Bai Yu's life was in danger, she was so worried that she couldn't sit still anymore. Clenching the weather stick in his hand, he rushed directly into the water vapor. Then there is the end of the road ahead, and Bai Yu must not be allowed to face it alone. Chapter 293. Sword Light in Despair. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Lightning-like figure, shuttle in the sea. On the dark seabed, a blue-purple arc of light appeared. Even if it is blocked by seawater, the speed of the electromagnetic thunder is still astonishing. In the blink of an eye, they went straight through the far-flung road, only one step away from the mist of water vapor created by the battle of Bai Yu and the 3 of them. Bai Yu, here I come. A flash of determination flashed in Nami's eyes, and he was about to plunge into the water mist battlefield immediately. Danger. The warning shouted, suddenly sounded in unison behind him. Nami, who stopped his movements, looked up and saw his own ghosts. The dazzling golden light turned into a big hand, rushed out of the water vapor, locked the Nami and grabbed it. The speed is like lightning, so fast that people don't even have time to react. Not everyone calls Bai Yu, Nami's railgun. All have to rely on electromagnetic acceleration to exert terrifying kinetic energy. Without speed blessing in a hurry, the power is simply not worth mentioning. Unable to fight back, Nami couldn't even struggle with a wave, except for a handful of sea stones worth 12 coins, so he could only stay where he was. Shoo, shoo shoo. Several deep purple lightning bolts roared out, tearing apart the power of the ocean. Even Admiral did not dare to face it. It's Zeus. Nami looked at Zeus in surprise. The white clouds had turned into jet black color, and countless electric lights were wandering around, and Nami could even detect the thundering plasma brewing in his cloud. Although I don't know how he, as homies, has power under the sea. However, the lightning strike just now was indeed ridden by him. Nami, run! Nami, who was lucky to escape, had not had time to rejoice that he was saved, and his companions shouted in unison from behind. Click! The sound of things shattering resounded from his ears. The lightning that resisted the advance of the golden hand, under Piran's strength, actually began to crack. Rub, rub. The cracks got bigger and bigger, and in the blink of an eye, the dark purple lightning was covered with scars like spider webs. After a bang, it was completely destroyed by power, and it collapsed into countless lightning snakes and scattered into the king's sea. The golden light is shining, and the palm is still mighty. But Zeus has already been unable to hit the same lightning strike as before. After several tossing, he has long been sluggish, not to mention the mighty thunder, and even his body has shrunk twice. Although he carried a lot of seastone coins, because the other party was too close, there was simply not enough time to carry out electromagnetic acceleration, and the attack caused by the electromagnetic gun was simply not worth mentioning. After a while of cat and mouse play, the big golden hand arrived in front of him again. When she was the closest, she could even see strands of silver light wandering around her palm. It turned out that the two five elders shot together. A sense of enlightenment rose in her heart. However, at such a time, what is the use of knowing this? I hate it. I don't hate death. I just hate that at such a time, I can't rush to Bai Yu's side and fight side by side with him. Nami lowered his head, half closed his eyes weakly, no longer had the strength to struggle, and let his vision be occupied by the bright golden light and the rusting sword light. Etc. Sword. Light. Exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. As if he found something, the original strength was exhausted, and Nami was full of frustration. Zhongxi, as if he had been hit with a heart booster, suddenly burst out with boundless strength from his limbs and bones. He forced his body to open his eyes. A sword light that flew from the sky directly cut off the palm of the hand. Whether it was golden light or silver light, all of them disappeared under this slash. After the sword light ended, it turned into a slender figure. She would never mistake the familiar appearance of a heroic face, even if it was turned to ashes. Bai Yu, it's really you. Nami wept with joy. Dash dash. Bai Yu tiptoed and disappeared in place. When he reappeared, he had reached Nami's expression. Who else but me? Bai Yu reached out and gently wiped the tears from Nami's face. What a stupid cat. Didn't I say, you have to always believe me, I'll be fine. Following the wiped corners of his eyes, Bai Yu directly picked the ends of Nami's hair, feeling the softness of his palm, and his heart melted unconsciously. I'm not a stupid cat. Nami straightened her nose and put on a vicious look. Isn't that the one who shot this time? Both of them are five elders, and they also attacked. Nami was full of grievances, and his eyes were full of Bai Yu's concern. There was worry and fear on his face. Looking at Bai Yu, he couldn't help but want to hug him and rub it. Ha ha ha. No matter how much trash comes, it's just trash. Under absolute strength, what kind of tricks candy is just a joke? Bai Yu smiled boldly. Although his body was not as tall as a murloc, the pride he exuded was definitely a million times better than that of the other party. I'm dying of worry. Nami fell headlong into Bai Yu's arms. She dreamed of becoming a navigator, but she never thought about how strong and powerful Bai Yu would be. She just wants to travel around the world with her beloved to experience and explore new and unknown unknowns. Don't worry, I'm fine. Bai Yu opened his arms and led Nami check with confidence. He was clean and tidy, and there was not much blood on his body, and now all that remained on his body were skin wounds, not even two penetrating wounds, let alone life-threatening. Okay, no, take it back and block it. Nami, who was just about to have a good 940 check, suddenly tightened his face when his fingers touched Bai Yu's body. As if thinking of something, he quickly pulled Bai Yu to be on guard. The coveted opponents are still there. At such a time, how can the empty door open wide, giving people a chance to take advantage of it? Tweet, didn't you check? I'm all ready. Bai Yu raised his eyebrows, with a different meaning in his smile. The speed of the car is 80 miles, and at first glance, it is the old driver of Chu Mingshan. Don't make trouble. Seeing Bai Yu's smile, Nami's face turned red. Beware of danger, the enemy is still there. The two five elders didn't show up, they must have ambushed and wanted to attack again. However, under the threat of a powerful enemy, she still did not dare to relax. A handful of seastone coins, in the electromagnetic field, accelerated frantically. She had had enough just now, and she couldn't accumulate the loss, and now she must not do it again. Even if they burst out with all their strength, they are not their opponents, but an extra burst of power can also lighten Bai Yu's burden, so she doesn't want to be a drag bottle. They, not all of them. Pointing to the water vapor not far away, Bai Yu had a half smile on his face. His eyes were as calm as water, and he looked indifferent, even more so than anyone else in the world. Chapter 294. Who is not an old silver coin anymore? Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. What? Nami looked in the direction against Bai Yu's pointing. I saw two figures stumbled out of the misty water vapor. Compared to Bai Yu's calmness, they were not treated so well. Dilapidated clothes are the norm. His face was blue and purple, and the mustache, which he was proud of, had all been removed. If it hadn't been for the power of his mind, it would have flickered forcibly, and it would have been his head that would have been cut off. The other 5 elders, with blonde hair and high spirits, were nowhere near as good. Conqueror's Haki has been condensed to ultimate, and his physical skills can be called unprecedented. He has been lurking for so long, even hiding his mustache. In the end, it was in his knowledge of the future that the two dared to communicate with each other. The extremely cautious sneak attack turned into a bubble. Not only did he fail to achieve a single blow, but he also aroused the fierceness of the great demon king, and he used his weapons to fight them. Although a pair of iron fists is enough to pierce through the void, even if it is head-to-head with the supreme sword, it will definitely not fall behind. But the dark power of the other party is really too weird and overbearing, giving people a feeling of death by touch. Coupled with his exquisite and unheard-of swordsmanship, even if they joined forces, they would not have the slightest power to fight back, and could only barely support. The bright red blood, intertwined with ice-blue frost flowers, the weakness from excessive blood loss, and the freezing cold, made both of them unable to hold on. Otherwise, the blonde 5 elders wouldn't have come up with a trick to attack Nami as a hostage. It's a pity that he was completely smashed by someone's sword from the sky before he got it. That's them. Nami looked at the two figures in front of him, his face full of disbelief. In the dignified world, the highest authority, the 5 elders, is actually 2 old men who are dying, looking like they are about to die. If not, Bai Yu chuckled lightly, his face full of indifference, and he didn't take them seriously. But, I would never be so careless in my heart. People are getting old. He didn't want to capsize in the gutter. Don't look at these 2 guys, they are both weak, about to play GG, and they look like they need a box lunch. But, Bai Yu's pretty sure, they definitely have a backup. Do you underestimate this old fox? It is definitely yourself who suffers in the end. What Tezu said, despising the enemy strategically and paying attention to the enemy tactically, Bai Yu has always kept it in his heart. Hey, it's really hard to beat. Bai Yu couldn't help but smacked his mouth. He put his right hand on his body without a trace, covering up the green light in the palm of his hand. Open black lens bracket healing jutsu. I was caught off guard and was attacked just now, and I really took a trick. Getting a punch at close range is no less than taking a high-yield bomb. Fortunately, most of the man-made devil fruits that he devoured before were Zone's beast fruits. Although the vegetables were just a bit of vegetables, the improvement of physical fitness was still quite high. Otherwise, he will not only use healing jutsu to heal his wounds, but he may have to lie on a stretcher directly. How could he be so strong? What a horrible body. The two who have fought side by side for many years, looking at each other, can read the deep fear from the eyes of their old friends. As this the 5 elders. Too bad. Nami couldn't help but fell in love with Shubi, with a faint disgust on his face. Damn it, the lifeless guy. A mere little girl dares to underestimate us. Being afraid of Bai Yu does not mean that they will bow their heads to a mere navigator. Even though she looks like, Bai Yu has a very close relationship. The two stared at each other with anger, a terrifying aura emerged from their bodies, and the seawater was deterred by the aura, and rolled wildly. But, in addition to being strong, it also gives people a kind of inexplicable feeling of weakness, with a slightly stern taste. In Bai Yu's eyes, they are full of weaknesses, strong on the outside and weak on the inside, and the standard is at the end of the bullet. A despicable pirate is a despicable pirate. If you admit defeat now, maybe we can still give you a life. At this time, the two of them were still scolding and talking trash. 37 places. The obvious Achilles heel, like a cake with a sweet taste, attracts people to attack him. Inspired by the two, Bai Yu, who stood quietly beside Nami, finally flashed a stern look on his face. First, quiet like a virgin, moving like a rabbit. The afterimage disappeared with the wind, and Bai Yu finally moved. Lululu. When he reappeared, a layer of frost was already on his body. The flowing sea water also turned into endless frost spears, like the judgment of the gods, madly thrown towards them. Bai Yu, who was wrapped in frost, was also falling with the saturated blow. Very good. The eyes were facing each other again, and the two old friends exchanged information calmly. It is impossible to sit still. The blonde 5 elders flutter their fists, breaking the endless void. The mustache 5 elders are surging with psychic power, encompassing boundless sea water. The ice spears disintegrated and shattered one by one, and the two people who were fighting against them were injured and their movements became slower and slower. Yidao liu ao yi yidao shura, Ginachi. The clear dragon roar sounded, and the blade flashed with dazzling brilliance. This is the time. The two of them roared in unison. The appearance of chi deficiency and weakness disappeared instantly, and overwhelming power bloomed from his body. Gold and silver lights are entangled, mind power blesses body arts, and the power of the two top fruits is beyond imagination. Great terror. Great crisis. Great danger. Although Jin Kunluo's new sword light is powerful, it is still a little worse. You. The sword light was shattered, but the two five elders who joined together were still reluctant to let go, and attacked Bai Yu brazenly. It is about to kill him here in one blow. The combined attack of the two directly hit Bai Yu's slender body, and the breath of life disappeared. Successful. Finally get rid of this nomad's monster. After trying their best, the two people who lost their strength couldn't help gasping for breath. After calculating, and finally succeeding, after all, it is impossible for any human being to survive. Ice. The joy of success. Before it came to my heart, I discovered that what was identified as Bai Yu's corpse turned into crystal clear ice crystals and collapsed with a bang. Fake. Be careful. The pupils of the two shrank. The chuckle of, from the air, was particularly harsh. I calculated him once, and do you want to calculate it a second time? I want to eat a hammer. Such an obvious temptation. If he was caught, he would not be a fool. Asshole. Being lied to. Two five elders, before they could say anything. The frost spears on the ground shattered, and the cold current of ultimate surged out, eroding the space of the sea in minutes, turning them into frost. Chapter 295. What is the invincible trick? Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. The killing intent is these ice spears. The mature five elders understood Bai Yu's layout in minutes. The seemingly useless ice spear was actually a pre-designed prelude. While dispelling their concerns, endless murderous intent was brewing. It's too late to see through. Bingshin is ruthless. Two huge ice swords dozens of meters long swept through the endless cold current. The sword light shakes. This attack was launched from the side, and it arrived in front of him in an instant. The blonde five elders didn't even have time to resist, and only had time to protect their vital points. Their arm was cut off by Ultimate's ice, and half of their body was frozen and covered with a thick layer of ice. The beard five elders didn't get much better either. It was purely a strange and invisible power of thought. With the help of the endless sea water that was ushering in, it was barely blocked, but the blood was frozen uncontrollably. The blood vessels are all exuding cold air, the skin has also turned ice blue, and the eyebrows and beards are full of ice blue ice slag. In a blink of an eye, two mighty five elders, once disabled. Bai Yu, who disappeared, finally appeared under two ice swords. Kai -940. Who can't be an old silver coin? Pity. Bai Yu shook his head and looked at the two who had withdrawn and retreated with regretful eyes. It was almost enough to cut the blonde hair in half, and with Ultimate's cold snap, he could definitely make him die, but it was a pity that he was allowed to hide. It is really difficult to train Conqueror's Haki to ultimate taijutsu. Although touching the source of frost can make his broken arm unable to reconnect. But compared to killing it once and for all, breaking the arm in a mere way is still almost meaningless. On the other hand, with the strange and sudden effects of telekinesis, he actually escaped his fatal blow. Although the blood was frozen, it was not a fatal injury. Bai Yu took care of it. The two ice crystal giant swords condensed in his hands, and gave them another shot, but the other party didn't give them a chance at all. After experiencing the situation just now, the two of them can be said to be afraid of the rope after being bitten by a snake for 10 years. Not to mention short-range battles, they didn't even give them the chance to fight from a distance. Bai Yu made several shots, and they all dodged as soon as they could. They didn't face each other at all. Although they were pressed and beaten, BCAA had no power to fight back, but if Ishin escaped, Bai Yu would have a hard time dealing with them. Even in front of him, the other party is disabled and infested by frost. Deputy Captain, Boss Bai Yu. A few lights and shadows flashed past, drawing a long waterline on the seabed. After the storm subsided, the figures of different heights and shorts appeared, and it was really the Straw Hat crew. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Enel, Ace, Jinbei. Straw Hats. Everyone joins. During the time Bai Yu and the five elders were fighting, the companions on the ship certainly couldn't just watch the show. Franky, at least, has been trying to step in and help. After a lot of hard work, he finally built the battle armor he promised before for Yuan. Although it is only a semi-finished product, there is no powerful power, but if it is only isolated from the sea water, it will definitely not be a problem. The crew who devoured devil fruit can finally escape the barrier of the sunshine miles without fear of the curse of the sea, and step into the battlefield. In close combat, you may also be afraid that the armor will be broken and the sea water will flow in, resulting in weakness, but if you only rely on strength for remote support, there is no such concern at all. Thunder, fire, frost, blood, giant Buddha, cannonball, mech. Various powers bloomed behind Bai Yu, ready to move with a terrifying aura. If the gathering bursts out at one point, even if Bai Yu wants to take over, it will not be so easy. Not to mention, the two opposite, the disabled five elders. His pupils shrank, his eyes widened, his limbs and joints trembled uncontrollably. This time it's not pretending, but really panicking. A Bai Yu, beat him to the death, and come back to this pile of perverts. If you really fight, can you still survive? As the bright side, the supreme controllers of the world, they don't want to die in this stinky ditch. You, with your strength, actually pulled so many people to do it. The mustache was so angry that his fingers were shaking uncontrollably. Young people, let the strong bully the weak. How much more bullying? It's just not about martial arts. Ah, Didn't you join forces to attack our deputy captain first, and then attacked? You're shameless, how dare you talk about us? What about shame? Sanji is not Zoro's saw build gourd, and directly retorted. Asshole. Having been in a high position for many years, as the five elders, it was the first time that he was scolded by the nose. Not to mention, his psychic power is fueled by emotions, which is flammable and explosive. Straight, angry, bad, and angry. The heavy emotions erupted together, and the mustache became a ball of anger. The appearance of the back molars being bitten, people couldn't help worrying that he would explode in place the next moment. Do you really want to kill them all? Although the blonde five elders are more calm, the fear under the banner can never be hidden. Laugh. It's obviously you who made the sneak attack first, so how dare you say this? The boss said that a murderer will always be killed. Fatty Lan let out a wow of laughter, then took out the famous sayings that Bai Yu had learned from him and showed off. The cold current swept through his body. Although it was not as overwhelming as Bai Yu's, Ultimate's frost was still not to be underestimated. Just a mere pirate. Is it true that our dignified five elders are afraid that you won't succeed? The big deal is, the fish die and the net breaks, come and taste our strongest power. The two looked at each other, and when they were forced to the corner, they did not retreat but advanced, showing a strong fighting spirit. The terrifying power spreads, the brilliance of various colors interweaves, and the power that faintly exudes, the people who see it are terrified. I started to risk my life, I want to give my life a blow. Then let's witness the stamp under your hand. Bai Yu, who had been sitting and watching the play for so long, finally spoke slowly. Fighting intent to the sky, don't read it at all. Then go to hell together. This is our invincible trick. The five elders were exhausted, and the veins on their heads were exposed, roaring up to the sky. The golden light and silver light intertwined, condensing a terrifying offensive, and the surrounding sea water was transpired in an instant. Yi Dao Lu, profound truth, a Rakshasa. Physical, magical, spiritual. All the power condensed and exploded in 1 second, and the brilliance that bloomed was enough to capture the brilliance of the sun. The sword light swayed, as if the stars could fall. But, after the sword light falls, the two who shouted at the cost of their lives and used their invincible tricks actually disappeared in place. Turned into two blood-colored lights and shadows, they crossed an infinite distance in an instant, and they reached the sea in the blink of an eye. Chapter 296. Air-blown straw hats. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Run, run. Didn't they say they had to work hard? The blood gushing out of the emotions is just to escape. Looking at the two five elders who fled in embarrassment and turned into black spots, compared to their just, they were not afraid of death and were like a martyr's dying declaration. The strong sense of contrast made the hot-blooded teenagers present stunned. People couldn't help reaching out and rubbing their eyes, wondering if they were wrong. This is too. The huge stimulation made them unable to organize the language for a while, such as choking in the throat, unable to speak. For the protagonist of the hot-blooded fan, old coins or something is really too much. Bai Yu was also manipulated by the five elders' show, and looked at him with a stunned look. The invincible trick is to run away with a bucket. This, very scientific. If you run away, you will not be killed, so you will be invincible. Not really talking nonsense. Bai Yu's heart was burning with the spirit of spit, and there were too many spit points, and he didn't know where to start. Don't be in a daze, hurry up. It was the blue fat man who had done Shichibukai, who was the first to react from his astonishment. I'm coming. The group of Luffy who were woken up by the cold snap responded as if they had just woken up from a dream. After regaining consciousness, they hurriedly used their respective strengths, intending to chase them in the direction they left. Look at my rubber machine gun. My billion-volt Thor. Let you have one hand, Sage Art Buddha on the top. 3 swords, mystery, 3,000 worlds. Super electromagnetic cannon, 108,000 hits. If they dare to defraud us, they must let them know how powerful our straw hats are. Fatty Lan took the lead, stepping on the surface of the water that had turned into ice crystals, and traversing quickly. All right. A pair of big hands surged, blocking the way. Okay. Everyone frowned and looked at the person blocking the road, and it was Bai Yu. If you don't follow up, it will be too late. Damn, it's Qinghai people dare to say 2 words despicable to me, I must let them know what it means to be shameless. A certain middle two Thor, indignant. Deputy Captain, who are you? Sanji's face was full of doubts, and Zhongxi stagnated when the demonic foot was halfway through. He looked at Bai Yu in confusion, as if trying to get some explanation from his mouth. Bai Yu, why are you stopping us? The rough-hearted Luffy didn't have so many worries, and directly expressed the doubts in his heart. No need to chase. Facing the doubtful crowd, Bai Yu just shook his head lightly. Although he was also somewhat unhappy about letting these two guys go so easily, but the matter has come to an end, there is nothing to say. Don't chase. Do we just let them go so easily? Nami, who was beside him, leaned over and looked at Bai Yu suspiciously. No need. Bai Yu yawned lazily. He put Jin Kunluo back in the sheath and explained lightly. Anyway, it's the 5 elders. If Ishin wants to escape, and they don't want to fight, the probability of us catching them is too low. He felt the power of Uranus. Uranus, from the other side, and it was double. Although ancient weapon, there is no saying that after superposition, the power becomes stronger. But as long as the opponent has this on him and has the ability to drive him, he is qualified to fight to the death. Unless the frog was boiled in warm water like he did with the mustache before, and inadvertently drained his strength to below the horizontal line, how could they be careless again after they just hit the trick? Even if it is not a Saint Seiya, but the dignified five elders are not fools. Since the cost of killing is so heavy, it is even very likely that the bamboo basket will be empty in the end. Bai Yu has a pit in his head, so he would go to the trouble of doing this kind of thing. He didn't eat meat and didn't say anything, and he was very likely to cause a show. It would be really troublesome if things went in an uncontrollable direction because both sides suffered. When the nuclear bomb deterrence is the strongest, it is never the explosion, but the time when the nuclear bomb is aimed at the well. Now what he has to do is to collect redstone, coordinate history text, step by step, arrive at Raftel, look for the great secret treasure left by Roger, and inherit his legacy. On the way of treasure hunting, you are trying to collect fruits and increase your power. As long as you have enough strength, you can break everything, including ancient weapons. Time, the time for stable development, is the most important thing for now. For flowers. Bai Yu's expression darkened and he sighed deeply. Okay. Fatty Lan lowered his head. Although he knew that what Bai Yu said was reasonable, he was probably afraid that they would be injured in the aftermath of the battle, but he was still unwilling. It's too cheap to let them go like this. Nami frowned and said what Jinbei was hiding in his heart. Cheap. My attack is not so easy to deal with. Bai Yu smiled contemptuously, his eyes looked into the distance, and there was an unidentified smile in his eyes. The endless sea. Two crimson blood shadows crazily shuttled across the sea. The speed at which the sound barrier is broken, and the turbulent waves that stir the calm sea. Zero. It was clearly two human figures, but the movement they made was bigger than a ship riding the wind and waves. Cough cough. I don't know how long it took to walk on the road, a bloody figure finally couldn't hold it anymore, and a chubby figure fell out. The silver thought force automatically wrapped around his figure, preventing him from diving into the sea. Before he could completely stabilize his body, the earth-shattering coughing sound rang out, making people suspect that if this continued, his lungs would have to be coughed out by him. Sittings, are you okay? The blonde five elders, who fell from another figure, supported the mustache beside him, and said with concern. It's not that their relationship is life and death, it's just that the two of them are grasshoppers on the same line. No, it's fine. The mustache face was pale and airy. The whole body was covered in ice blue, obviously it was not lightly eroded by the frost, all the limbs and joints were rigid, and the eyes were still bright. Fortunately, the power of mind can still be used, otherwise he is afraid that he will be a waste and can't move. The strength of that guy is getting more and more terrifying. The mustache had a cold face, and he didn't even dare to be angry. The deep eyes and deep fear could not be concealed at all. Yeah, fortunately we bluffed him just now, otherwise we can only give up 10 years of life scale to motivate. Uranus fled. Quote. The blonde five elders had panic in their eyes. Frightened, he wrapped his broken arm and worked hard to run armament hockey, preventing the frost gas from the fracture from spreading into the body along the wound. 0. Chapter 297. It's time to deal with the business. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Being beaten in the head by Bai Yu, he became very attentive. Even with Uranus in his hand, he did not dare to say victory over these two words. The ancient weapons that dignified everything became a tool of escape in his mouth. That's right. Fortunately, frightened, the mustache nodded and agreed with the blonde's statement. Quote. Just as he was about to say something, his face suddenly changed. The river suddenly turned upside down in the stomach, the terrifying cold current broke out in an instant, the mustache's eyes froze, and he hurriedly used the strength of feeding to suppress it. What's wrong? The blonde five elders looked over with concern. The mustache of the companion, his face turned red and purple, and several large bags suddenly swelled up on his body, as if there were small mice constantly running around in his body. No, 940. Puff. The mustache forcibly suppressed the cold current in his body. Facing the question from the blonde, he hadn't had time to say the word, it's okay. For a while, he was forced to open his mouth. A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out. The dark red blood was filled with a cold air, but it turned into icy blue ice crystals as soon as it came into contact with the air. The blood was frozen in the frost and looked extremely ominous. Falling into the sea area with a radius of 3 feet was directly turned into a piece of ice. What a horrible cold snap, much stronger than that kid Aokiji. The blonde five elders' pupils shrank, just about to lean in and say something. The next moment, as if some chain reaction was triggered, the mustache could no longer be suppressed, the cold current swept through the body, the blood surged, and the river was overturned. Puff. Mouth after mouthful of blood spurted out, turned into ominous ice crystals of ginseng blood, and fell on the sea. Just like the blood in the body does not need money, it is a large piece when sprayed, until the face is like golden paper, and the blood is almost gone, and then it barely stops. His feet swayed, his eyes closed, and he didn't even have the strength to manipulate his thoughts and stabilize his body, so he fell straight down. Be careful. The blonde's eyes flickered slightly, but in the end, she walked over to catch him. The whole life collapsed without knowing, and the body was covered with thick frost, not to mention the hair and skin, and even the cold hair was full of cold currents and traces of ice ballast. It turned out that it was miserable enough to think that his arm was cut off. But looking at the mustache, he finally understood, what is only worse, not the worst. If you let it go like this, he will freeze to death. Blonde couldn't help swallowing, and a ridiculous thought rose from his heart. The 5 elders, who calculated everything, took charge of everything, and only bowed to Lord Yimu, died under the mere frost. This is simply the most ridiculous joke in New World. What's even more ridiculous is that this joke is gradually turning into reality. Can't wait. Blonde eyes froze, Conqueror's hockey opened to the limit. Regardless of consumption, the whole person rushes directly towards the nearest connection point. If Sittings were to die like this, let alone the other 5 elders, even Lord Yim would never let him go. The blonde 5 elders disappeared in a flash. The only person left in place, the sea frozen by the aftermath of the cold wave. The power of the aftermath of the cold wave directly changed the world, and the effect was not weaker than the Aokiji fruit awakening. Thousands of miles in radius, Wang Yanghai turned into a world of ice and snow in the blink of an eye. Under the scorching sun, the ice ridges soaring into the sky reflected all kinds of dazzling lights. Madara's was like a dream, and it didn't mean to melt at all. I see. After listening to Bai Yu's words, the members of the Straw Hat crew reluctantly restrained their actions after listening to the price the 5 elders had to pay. Now that the deputy captain, the boss Bai Yu, has made a deal and a backhand, they will not force it. Humph. Cheap them. Nami was still a little indignant and couldn't help but snorted twice. Don't worry. Now it's just an interest charge, and they'll pay the price later. Bai Yu smiled slightly and stroked the ends of his hair. While feeling the softness of his palm, he patiently comforted him. It wasn't until Little Thief Cat showed a happy expression that Bai Yu calmly slid down the ends of his hair and kneaded carefully. Eat tofu. Can my family eat tofu? Bullshit. There is no evidence. Be careful with Jin Kunluo. Alright. Nami hugged Zeus and squeezed hard, protruding somewhere. After taking care of those uninvited guests, it's time for us to get down to business. The remnants of the world government's fleet were handed over to Franky's core of bones. Bai Yu turned his attention to the trembling murlocs inside the protective cover. Forget the 5 elders, the rest of the trash, he can't be interested. Business. The last piece of coordinate history text. Robin's eyes lit up, and under the palm of Senju's giant Buddha, he rushed to Bai Yu excitedly. Bai Yu nodded and walked directly to Neptune with his companions. Thank you for your help, the Fishman Island is very grateful. It's the second time I've been rescued by the adults, it's really. Neptune was in tears, almost overflowing with gratitude. Hidden ancient weapons Poseidon violated the taboo of the taboo. I thought that this time was doomed, whether it was my beloved daughter Shirahoshi or the fishmen of the Fishman Island, they would all be destroyed by the wrath of the world government and turned into the second Ohara. The best plan is to return to the rule of darkness again, lose dignity and become slaves. Did not expect. His cheap son-in-law unexpectedly turned out to stop him from talking. After the ups and downs of the battle, Leng had beaten the 5 elders to shit. Terrifying strength. Neptune was surprised and delighted to see it. Don't be so polite, everyone is a family, Shirahoshi is my fiancé. Bai Yu bent his mouth, his face was indifferent, and his tone was very soft. I don't know, what do you mean by serious business? 0.0 inches. If we can help, we will never refuse. As expected of a country's coon, without Bai Yu asking him to speak, Neptune opened his mouth very politely. In the gratitude that was about to overflow in his eyes, he couldn't help but be filled with awe and fear. He didn't dare to be arrogant just because Bai Yu was polite, even if Shirahoshi was his fiancé. Not to mention anything else, judging from the strength he showed, this big guy definitely has the strength to smooth the Fishman Island off the map in a single thought. Other abilities may be average, but under the strong pressure of the world government, the Murlocs have a piece of land to live safely, and the ability to navigate the rudder is absolutely top-notch. It's not that exaggerated. Bai Yu waved his hand with a black line. He had to play a riddle again, and directly stated his purpose. Chapter 298. The whereabouts of the last piece of redstone. Light. The best traditional dishes of different countries. Best culinary dishes of world. I'm here for Shirahoshi of course. Secondly, I heard that the Fishman Island has traces of the historical text of the coordinates, and I want to rub a copy. Bai Yu directly opened the skylight to speak brightly. After grinding and chirping, he continued, not knowing what his cheap father-in-law would think of. Coordinate history text. Neptune ignored the first half of the sentence, frowned and muttered to himself, as if he was thinking about something. Is there a problem? Seeing the troubled look on Neptune's face, Bai Yu spoke with understanding. This. If it came earlier, of course there would be no problem, but now. Neptune's face was a little uneasy. Although Bai Yu is so polite now, who knows if this is superficial politeness. The Fishman Island can't resist the anger of this existence, not to mention that there are a bunch of monster-like crew members behind him, the 5th Emperor of New World. Now, is there any problem now? Is it inconvenient for us to rub it? Robin, who was thinking about the historical text, couldn't wait to speak. Of course not. It's nothing more than a mere rubbing. The adults saved the Fishmen Island. Even if it is a gift, it is a matter of course. But now on the island of 12 people, there really is no coordinate history text that exists. Neptune gritted his teeth, as if he was going out of his way. After speaking, looking at Bai Yu's eyes, he became even more determined, for fear that the boss would not believe him and suspect that he was lying and bring disaster to the Fishmen Island. Bai Yu, what my father said is true, there is really no such thing on the Fishmen Island. Shirahoshi looked at Nipji's uneasy look and couldn't help but nervously spoke up for him. Ah, the corner of Bai Yu's mouth smiled lightly, and he couldn't see the slightest bit of anger. Dodging to Shirahoshi's side, looking at the beauty in the shell, he stretched out his hand to comfort him. Bai Yu, in close contact with the male, even if it was his nominal fiancé, Shirahoshi's smiling face couldn't help but sing, and turned red. Don't worry, I know. Of course he knew that at this stage, it was basically impossible for the coordinate history text to exist on the Fishmen Island. Otherwise, based on the relationship between Luffy and the Murlocs in the original work, it is impossible to lack this coordinate. He just opened his mouth and was just holding it, and he just asked casually if he had the idea of taking a shot. No on the island now. Then according to your tone, the Fishmen Island should have had it before. If possible, I hope to give us some clues to the historical text of the coordinates, it will be very useful to us. Bai Yu looked over with burning eyes. After all, Shirahoshi's biological father, so Bai Yu was very polite to this cheap father-in-law. Yes, clues. If there is a clue, we can definitely find it. Willows and flowers bright in another village. Robin's eyes that had just dimmed, instantly lit up again. As long as Bai Yu is there, you can definitely find it. Clue. We know that with the power of the Fishmen Island, we can't protect this treasure at all. So I have been taking shelter under the Whitebeard pirate ship. When the Summit War broke out, the inscription on the text of the coordinate history was taken away by Lord Whitebeard himself. Its current trace is really unknown. Neptune's face became even more anxious. When all the members of the Whitebeard pirates disappeared, this kind of clue would be as good as not being told. Otherwise, Neptune wouldn't hesitate to speak, and he would have said it with the idea of using a dead horse as a living horse doctor. It's not that this statement is too coincidental, and I'm afraid that Bai Yu will feel that he is looking for an excuse to fool him. Hey, Neptune couldn't help sighing deeply, and closed his eyes sadly, as if he was closing his eyes and waiting to die. Among the powerful pirates, there are too many people who do not agree with one word to kill the country, not to mention deception. Whitebeard. Bai Yu let out a low voice, with a strange expression on his face. How could I have forgotten about this? Roger and Whitebeard both belong to the old remnants of the relationship. Based on the coordinates of the historical text in the original work and the time of disappearance, it is only possible that it is in his hands. Among the four emperors Shichibukai, he and Bigmom were the only ones who had meddled in the Fishmen Island. If they were in the hands of Bigmom, Luffy and his party would not be missing this piece. I knew that I had finished treating Whitebeard last time, so I asked him for it, and now I have to make a special trip. Bai Yu couldn't help but slapped his forehead and held his forehead. The usual action of covering his face directly broke Neptune's already sensitive nerves. Bai Yu, sir, please spare Shirahoshi. I am willing to pay all the price to give the Murlocs a way out. Crying for mercy, Neptune's knees softened, and he was about to fall to the ground in front of Bai Yu. An invisible force swept across his knees in midair, but he couldn't get down on his knees. Impressively, it was Bai Yu's hand. Although he didn't know what kind of drama he was singing, he was a cheap father-in-law anyway, so how could Bai Yu watch him kneeling in front of him? Shirahoshi is still married or not, and the princess still wants it. What are you talking about? Shirahoshi is my fiancé, how could I hurt him? As for the Murlocs, if you want, I can help you move into Wano-kuni. Looking down, in the aftermath of the battle, the Fishmen Island was torn apart. My cheap father-in-law, could it be driven crazy by 957? Bai Yu's eyes flickered slightly, thinking he had found the reason for Neptune's abnormality. It's just a matter of where the Murlocs live, and it's okay to help a bunch. Even if you don't look at the red stone that is about to arrive, you have to look at your fiancé. Wano-kuni. Neptune was a little stunned, unable to keep up with Bai Yu's thoughts. Yes, it's Wano-kuni. With Wano-kuni's antagonistic relationship with the world government, coupled with my care, the safety of the fishmen should not be a problem, but other conditions should not compare to the comfort of the Fishmen Island. I just don't know if you can accept. Bai Yu nodded and continued to ask. Compared to the old four emperors, the sphere of influence is vast, and the rise of their own straw hats is too fast. The only basic game they have won is Wano-kuni. It can't be sent to the White Earth continent, but to Long's revolutionary army. These are millions of Murlocs, not 10 or 8. That thing is still being besieged by the world government. Really Wano-kuni, aren't you satisfied? Bai Yu's brows are slightly wrinkled. If it really doesn't work, he can only shove it into Brother Ming's hands, but in that case, he needs to be warned several times. Otherwise, Bai Yu was really scared, and in the blink of an eye, there was a new trade item in the underground black market. Murloc slaves. That would be so embarrassing. Chapter 299. Shirahoshi wants to get on board. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Satisfied. Of course satisfied. Very satisfied. Neptune has nothing to be dissatisfied with, and it is worthless to say nothing, and there is no need to worry about the world government's targeting, so that the homeless Murlocs can get a place to live. This is like a pie in the sky. If he still thinks this or rejects that, he doesn't have to do anything with Bai Yu, he can beat himself to death. But, what about the feeling of being deceived, and then taking anger and destroying the Murlocs? What happened to the racial migration? Neptune was puzzled and puzzled again, and his face looked like 100,000 whys. If you're satisfied, let's start preparing. We also have to go back to Wano-kuni, just in time to escort one, otherwise the marine pirates on the road will be tossing enough. Bai Yu nodded and spoke directly. Help people to the end, send Buddha to heaven. He didn't want to toss out problems on the road, and then turned back to help. As for Neptune's odd look, he is a human, not a Murloc. It would be good to be able to read people's faces. The Murloc or something is not within the scope of technology at all. What? Get ready. Hurry up, we won't stay long. Bai Yu's face was a little impatient, and he opened his mouth to urge. Escorting the Murlocs to Wano-kuni was already his biggest concession, and he didn't want to waste time on meaningless things. Neptune was in a daze, and he didn't understand anything, so Bai Yu rushed to summon the Murlocs. Bai Yu, may I join your ship? Get rid of it. Princess Shirahoshi, standing in the shell, looked at Bai Yu pitifully. In the watery eyes, full of hope, people can't bear to refuse. Could I, Bai Yu, be that kind of superficial person? Of course not. I'm just interested in Shirahoshi's ability to manipulate sea kings. The ancient 3 god-tier devices, Poseidon, etc., even if they can't compare to Uranus, they won't be cheap. I'm just the vice captain, and I still have to ask our captain's consent for my companion's affairs. Bai Yu pouted towards Luffy, who was not far away. Although he was interested in Shirahoshi, no, he was interested in her Poseidon power. However, as a member of the Straw Hats, Bai Yu still doesn't want to go overboard when it comes to inviting his companions. What? After the battle, Luffy, who was replenishing his energy, raised his head in confusion. The swollen gangster looks like a hamster eating frantically. Anger plus foodie, real hammer. Master Captain, can you let me join you? I will not hold back. Please. Shirahoshi looked in Luffy's direction sincerely. Get on board. Luffy, who was whistling the steak, reluctantly thought about it with a little energy. Shirahoshi's appearance is nothing to Luffy's eyes. To him, beauty is not as eye-catching as barbecue, but to some people, it is not the same. Beautiful lady. Hey, kill trigger. Sanji staged another show on the spot, with a bloody nose. The bright red blood was more like a fountain, and those who didn't know it thought he was doing magic. Chicken cook. Zoro pouted in disdain. A woman or something, how can there be a beautiful knife in her hand? At some point, Zoro and Luffy are eerily identical. Miss. Sanji lay on the ground weakly, not even having the strength to argue. His face was pale, and he looked like he had lost too much blood. This time, the spray is at least 3 times as high as before. It is really not a cover to ignore the beauty of the race, young and old. Miss, I can see your. Before Franky's words were finished, a slash suddenly flew from the sky, directly knocking this non-mainstream skeleton, also known as the underpants maniac, to a head. With a nosebleed or something, he could barely keep one eye open. He wanted to see what happened to the bottoms, but Bai Yu didn't have any special feelings for green. To be able to hold back and use the back of the knife to shoot without the edge of the knife is all for the sake of being in the same boat and being each other's companions. Humph. Bai Yu snorted coldly and gave a warning look to the restless gentleman on board. Captain, Shirahoshi's situation, you can decide for yourself, don't worry so much. What would you do if you got on the boat? Boatmen, navigators, archaeologists, logistics, cooks, we have it all. Luffy counted with his fingers. After all, Shirahoshi didn't look like a fighter in the shell. Sailor. I can be a sailor. I can make the boat go fast on the sea and communicate with marine life, making it easier to explore. Shirahoshi raised his hands excitedly. Although Princess Yiji said that the matter of her awakening Poseidon must be kept secret and not let the world government know, but according to the current situation, there should be no need to keep it secret. After all, the world government probably knew it a long time ago. If Bai Yu hadn't rescued the scene today, she would have been doomed. A sailor, communicating with marine life. Even Luffy, who was thinking about it, refused to put down the delicious meat in his hand. So be it. As the captain, I promise to let you on board. From now on, we are companions. You are welcome, Shirahoshi. Luffy grinned, a mouthful of white fang very bright. Marvelous. Shirahoshi jumped up from the shell happily, jumping 3 feet high, so excited that he even forgot his ladylike posture. Laughing and laughing, Shirahoshi couldn't help crying. For Shirahoshi, who has lived in a hard-shell tower since he was a child, and has never seen a few outsiders. The outside world is always the most fascinating vocabulary, not to mention going out to sea with a boat to explore this vast world. This is definitely an imagination that only exists in dreams. Bai Yu. Nuo Li Jiao, thank you. Shirahoshi pursed his lips and looked at Bai Yu, weeping with joy. Idiot. Thank me for what? It is the captain's absolute promise to let you on board, not me. Bai Yu chuckled lightly, and didn't take credit, and directly used it to Luffy's office. But you beat the 5 elders away, so I can. I can open my eyes to see this vast world. Shirahoshi pursed his lips and kept the second half of the sentence in his heart. If not, Bai Yu's ability to suppress everything gives her the confidence to not fear the wind and rain. This kind-hearted and empathetic girl is afraid that she will never step out of this hard-shell tower, which is both a guardian and a cage. I'm your fiancé, this is what I should do. Bai Yu fondly rubbed Shirahoshi's head, his eyes could not stop wandering. The most beautiful woman in the official definition is really not a cover. It has only been a long time since the last time, and she has grown so much. Chapter 300. Shirahoshi's exclusive skills. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Crew Princess Shirahoshi detected. Abilities are being synced successfully. Crew Princess Shirahoshi's exclusive skills are being adapted. Poseidon, half awakened. Immature juveniles, unable to fully exert their power, can only talk to sea kings to a limited extent under normal conditions, and can temporarily manipulate sea kings when they are endangered. Is it still just a juvenile state? Bai Yu felt the power that suddenly emerged in his body, and muttered to himself thoughtfully. He didn't have much hope for this party at first, and of course he couldn't say how disappointed he was. After all, if Shirahoshi can completely control this power, based on the name of the ancient 3 weapons, and the performance of Uranus, she will not be forced to curl up in a hard shell by a third-rate ability. Inside the tower, dare not come out. Ignoring this ability at will, Bai Yu looked at her exclusive ability curiously. There has been no newcomer on board for too long, and Bai Yu's curiosity has become more intense. Siren Song. The song of the Banshee god Siren has the ability to set off storms and create natural disasters on the sea. The graceful singing can inspire strength and heal wounds. Closing parenthesis. Inspiration. Cheerleading. Set off a storm. Bring your own BGM, isn't this a nurse? This kind of ability 957 words is really suitable for her. Looking at the beauty sitting in the shell, Bai Yu nodded with satisfaction. Her beauty alone is enough to boost her morale, and under the effect of the gag singing, the effect must be strong. Originally, the strength of the animals on the ship has been terrifyingly changed by the magic, and then a set of all-round enhancements and uninterrupted treatment during the battle. Cough cough. If this is in the game, I'm afraid it won't be an external title. Bai Yu couldn't help but smacked his mouth. What's wrong with Bai Yu? Being stared at by Bai Yu's burning eyes, the shy Shirahoshi blushed. Under the beautiful face, the snow-white skin is about to bleed. Here, there are still fathers, clansmen, and new friends. It's too blatant to look at it naked like this, isn't that kind of thing private? Thinking of some indescribable pictures that I heard from the clan's mouth, the lovely Princess Shirahoshi instantly turned into a red-faced, steam princess. Oh, I have a present for you as every companion on board. Glancing at Princess Shirahoshi, who had a strange expression and turned into steam princess, Bai Yu had some doubts in his eyes, but he pointed it out lightly. Who could have guessed that these two are both drama elites plus brain supplement experts, should they be called father and daughter? Gift. Shirahoshi's eyes were a little surprised, and he didn't have time to ask any more questions. A white streamer of light flashed out from Bai Yu's fingertips and quickly submerged between her eyebrows. A lot of novel knowledge, so you just wanted to give a gift. Shirahoshi cried out in shock at the vast amount of knowledge that was born out of thin air in his mind. Otherwise, what are you thinking about? Bai Yu raised his eyebrows, a little puzzled on his face. In the public, what kind of bad thoughts can he have? He just wants to make the newcomer stronger. No, nothing. Shirahoshi's eyes were dodging, not daring to look at Bai Yu's eyes. Steam Princess has entered an enhanced state, and even the skin on her hands has started to turn red and steamy. As if escaping in a hurry, he focused all his attention on the large amount of knowledge that had just emerged in his mind. Calling the Sea Tide Song. The unique melody of murlocs can resonate with the sea and set off waves out of thin air. Close black lens bracket. Battle Hymn of Courage. Singing the Battle Hymn of Courage can greatly improve the strength and morale of your companions. Close black lens bracket. Elemental Heavenly Lie. The sound like the sound of nature can gather free elements and greatly improve the strength of those with elemental abilities. Holy Light Hymns. Songs of light, with the power to summon light and drive away wounds. Quote. One after another, different hymns and poems emerged in her mind, whether it was a beautiful tone or a terrifying effect, which made this BCAA, princess who had lived in the tower for a long time, stunned. What a mighty force. Shirahoshi, who was amazed, couldn't help but sang according to the knowledge in his mind. The mighty power of light emerged from her body, making her beautiful face more holy. Just after the first half of the song was sung, the strong power of light had already transformed into many angels carved in pink and jade, holding a trumpet organ and accompanying him beside him. The power of light, flowing along the sea water, covered the murlocs, and the wounds that had been rubbed out by the aftermath of the battle healed in an instant. Can I see? Arm, my arm can take up arms again. The wounds are all healed and scabbed, this is a god, a miracle. Everyone who was healed by the power of light, all kneeled on the ground in gratitude, ecstatic, cheering, and singing of the new life that they had ushered in. These are the powers that I use with my own hands. Shirahoshi opened his eyes and looked at the power of light remaining at his fingertips, deeply shocked and unable to extricate himself for a long time. As expected of Miss Shirahoshi, the healing effect is even better than Chopper. Although he lost a lot of blood, he still couldn't stop Sanji. He turned into a moron. Looking at Shirahoshi's eyes, he turned into a thumping red heart. No, Shirahoshi's healing is more wartime, Chopper's treatment focuses on post-war, different types. Robin shook his head and gave a fair assessment. Hush hush hush, but listen to the deputy captain, the new partner is not only a late healer. She is good at boosting support, and calling the tide. The non-mainstream skeleton singer Brooke, excitedly playing the electric guitar in his hand. With a newcomer joining, he is finally not the only one on this ship, he is engaged in music. It seems that our ship has another powerful companion. Usopp thrusts the giant slingshot excitedly. The number of companions +1, the probability of facing danger alone is much lower. Is it the power of skills again? Bai Yu, co-captain, that's really scary. Enel Ace and the two looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Then they looked at each other and smiled, the air was filled with the smell of happiness. Anyway, Bai Yu is the deputy captain, no matter how strong he is, it will not harm them. Lord Bai Yu, the Murlocs have been assembled and ready to leave at any time. Breathing heavily, Neptune trotted over and said to Bai Yu. Hurrying to catch up, Neptune, who was so exhausted, finally completed the formation of the crowd. He can complete the important task of mobilization in a short period of time. Even with the assistance of the Straw Hats and those who are capable, his ability to rule the organization is really not bad.